Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. JV Wins, Dogon SS. We are here with yet another edition to the Conscious Approach channel on YouTube. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to everybody who's been subscribing to the channel, hitting that like button, leaving those comments. We certainly appreciate your support as we continue to kick out this logical content. For anyone out there, if this is your first time seeing what we like to do here, if this is the first video you've ever watched from our channel, if you happen to be new here, go ahead and continue to give us a couple more looks. Hit that subscribe button, man. Join the tribe. We certainly appreciate you as we continue to rock and roll, man. Engage us in our content. Leave a little feedback. Let us know what you think about some of these topics because we certainly don't pray tell to know all of the answers. We just like to kick the shit a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. Now, with that out of the way, welcome to all new and old faces as we continue to get things kicked off. First thing that we are going to discuss this week is our comments made by NBA star Anthony Edwards and Magic Johnson's response to what Anthony Edwards had to say. Mm-hmm. For anyone who follows along with what's going on in sports with the NBA right now, one of the hot topics is comments that Anthony Edwards made during an interview in which he said that previous eras of the NBA had players that didn't have any skill. More specifically, he said back in the day, outside of Michael Jordan, nobody really had skill like that. And, you know, obviously that ruffled a lot of feathers. A lot of players from previous eras took issue with those comments. They didn't really like what he had to say. Magic being one of them, who felt as though Anthony Edwards' comments don't even deserve to be paid attention to, mainly because Anthony Edwards has not won championships. That is Magic's logic. So we're going to go ahead and discuss our thoughts on what Anthony Edwards had to say, as well as Magic's response. So let me pull this up here. We've discussed previous eras of the NBA and styles of play on the channel before. So it comes as no surprise that we're going to go ahead and give our thoughts on this here. So this says Magic Johnson takes vicious shot at Anthony Edwards over Michael Jordan comments. Los Angeles Lakers legend Magic Johnson wasn't going to let Anthony Edwards' comments on the 1990s old school era of basketball fly. After the Minnesota Timberwolves star blasted the older NBA generations for players' lack of skill, Johnson fired back with a savage response to put Edwards in his place. Johnson recently spoke to ESPN's Stephen A. Smith about Edwards' bold claim, telling Smith that Edwards hardly had the resume to justify his take. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down and read Edwards' comments first, and then I'm going to play the clip of Magic Johnson responding via a question asked by Stephen A. Smith. So the article goes on to say Johnson's response comes less than a week after Edwards stirred up controversy by saying Chicago Bulls legend Michael Jordan was the only skilled player of his era. I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it, Edwards said. They say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only player that really had skill. You know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my God. But now everybody has skill. Where Edwards is lacking in trophies, the 23-year-old guard has made up for in confidence. The Timberwolves star unashamedly declared himself the number one option on Team USA squad in the Paris games this summer, even LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant on the roster. So in response to what Edwards had to say there, here's what Magic said when asked about it by Stephen A. Smith.
Edwards just said the other day that there really wasn't any skilled players in the NBA back in the day outside of Michael Jordan. That's what he said. Your response to that, Earthen Magic Johnson?
Well, you know, I don't never respond to a guy that's never won a championship. It's not really say he didn't win a college championship. I don't know if he even won a high school championship. So,
Oh, shots fired. Shots fired.
Uh,
So this has made its way all across sports media. They were talking about it on NBA Today. They, of course, talked about it on First Take. Everybody's giving their opinion, so I guess we'll go ahead and take our turns giving
you
our opinion as well. What were your thoughts on Edwards' comments, and what are your thoughts on Magic's response to what Edwards had to say about nobody from a previous era having skill outside of Jordan?
Well, first of all, I like to mention that clearly Magic's PR department didn't have an opportunity to formulate his response for this one, because normally it would have been more on the PR side of things. But on this one, he just literally threw bro under the bus. But I honestly would say rightfully so. And the reason being is that Anthony Edwards really sounded like a young person commenting on those things. I don't know how much film he's watched in the past, probably none. And it shows. But, I guess for the older generation of people, this is just the reality of modern consumerism, where there's so much content, there's so much going on that everybody gets lost in the sauce and what's happened lately in today's what have you done for me lately world. So there isn't much time for these young people to dig in the archives, dig in the crates a little bit to do their research. I'm not asking these young people to know everything that happened in the 90s, 80s, and 70s, or, that's a tall task. I mean, there were so many things going on pop culture wise in all of those decades, to ask these young people to be well versed in their history on pop culture is a tall task. However, when you're in a profession and you're a professional, I think it would serve you best to know the various greats that were in your profession, and not only just know those greats, but know why they were proclaimed to be great in their own respective eras. So today's day and age, where everybody is again just caught up in the last 5 to 10 years, it's no wonder why these kids goats are Paul George. You know what I'm saying? And every time they ask these kids who are your favorite basketball players, I'm hearing LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Paul George. Like, I'm not even hearing like Chris Paul's or I mean Wade's. I'm not hearing those names. I'm just hearing the same few names. And for the people out there that the kids out there that like Paul George, I heard their rationale behind it, and it's all aesthetics. They like the fact that he plays smooth, and they want to play smooth dribble tween step back basketball. So I'm telling you right now, the new wave of kids that are coming up right now, AAU basketball, 13, 14 years old, their goats and stuff is going to be Tatum and these other guys that's playing smooth and dribble tween. So I'll let you go, but I saw a clip online floating around where Kevin Garnett was pretty much telling these young guys, Anthony Edwards in particular, that, in his era, it was tougher, in the sense that the rule changes, and that triple step back that everybody's doing right now, it wouldn't have flew back then. So how are you going to create your separation, especially when there was hand checking and other things involved? So to say that your era is more skilled because the rules are more lax is a blindsided reference, a blindsided take. So Anthony Edwards, yeah, just sounding like an ignorant young person. I would hope that he would do a little bit more research, but really can't blame these kids nowadays because, well, nobody's really doing it. But what are your thoughts, sir, on Sir Magic Johnson? All right, the Magic one, throwing the Ant-Man under the bus. You down with this?
Well, I think both of them are. I think Ant is all the way wrong.
Of course.
So let me get on Ant 1st.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree, obviously, with what he had to say.
Mm-hmm.
You bring up, younger generations not educating themselves on things that took place in the eras that preceded them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no responsibility being put on them to do so. They're not being required to do so.
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, the mainstream media reinforces the idea that the NBA has never been more skilled and that players are just naturally better overall than they were
Mhm.
in previous eras.
Mhm.
If you've drank enough of that Kool-Aid, there's no reason for you to do any research, because what is there for you to learn from players from previous generations? You just believe that you're naturally better than them. Like you're just the evolved version of what it is that they used to do. And before he became the head coach of the Lakers, JJ Redick was somebody who
Good
peddled
Lord.
this speech every single chance he got, where he'd get on television and he would argue how the NBA in the 70s and 80s and was just completely worse because NBA players were playing against firemen and policemen,
Mhm.
as opposed to the way it's being played now, which is just completely skill based. And he would use his second spectrum and points per 100 possession analytics to back up his claims as to
Mhm.
why that is true. So my point in bringing this up is the media, in my opinion, bears a significant amount of responsibility for the mindset of individuals like Anthony Edwards. Because if you've heard over and over again that the league is at its most skilled today, compared to the way it used to be, what reason do you have to look up what anything that may have happened in previous times? You're going to drink all of that Kool-Aid. There's no reason for you to look back. Overall, I agree. And, it's not just with sports, but in life in general. I think that it's incumbent upon anyone who aspires to be the best version of themselves in whatever craft they commit themselves
Mhm.
to study some of the moves that happened before you so that you can take advantage of those strengths and combine them with your strengths so that you can essentially become a super saiyan instead of just thinking that your way is the best and the only way.
Mhm.
But we are dealing with modern times of instant gratification and immediacy. And in the midst of instant gratification and immediacy, there's really no need for anyone to look back on what happened in previous eras. So I think that that's a grave mistake. The greatest players of all time, as far as I can tell, in any sport, studied players from previous times, and all other players who didn't take the opportunity to do so ended up being players who may have been great. It depends on what they achieved throughout their career, but one can largely surmise that they ended their career with something left in the tank, a little bit of untapped potential. Now, granted, Edwards is still really, really young, so who knows how much of his ceiling he'll be able to reach. But one can argue that even at this point, even though the Anthony Edwards hype train is in full effect, trying to force this idea down everybody's throats that he could potentially be the new face of the NBA, there's holes in his game.
Yes, sir.
There are holes in his game in terms of his decision making, and there are holes in his game in terms of his shot selection, and there are holes in his game in terms of his overall judgment. You can't get in the playoffs and go 1,000 miles an hour because you're going to run out of gas, which is why they lost in the playoffs this past year, because in the conference finals he gave out of gas. He had nothing left in like the last three games because he gave it everything he had in the first three or four. That's a judgment call. That comes with experience, but also comes with learning what it took to get there from players from previous eras who did it before you.
Correct.
So I think he has a lot to learn. And he's short sighted, and he said this kind of thing. He kind of disqualified himself right from the get go when he said, I never really watched much of it, so I can't speak on it.
Right.
Then don't speak on it, bro.
Right.
Like, if you can acknowledge publicly, I ain't really watched, so I can't speak on it, just leave it at that. But you proceeded to give your opinion anyway, an opinion that people shouldn't pay attention to because you do lack the institutional knowledge. Now, when it comes to Magic, I understand Magic not liking what Ant had to say. Magic's one of the greatest players ever, and he was highly skilled. So
Mhm.
I'd be affronted if I heard these comments.
Mhm.
But I do not like what Magic Johnson's reasoning behind why Anthony Edwards' comments need to be disqualified were. That being, he never won a championship. You know how I feel about that rings thing. Um, One of the problems with NBA culture is ring counting. It's ruined the commentary around basketball because essentially we framed everything around how many titles somebody has, and I can't stand that. They don't do that very much in the NFL, except when it comes to like the greatest ever. But in the NFL, Barry Sanders didn't win a Super Bowl. A lot of people think he's one of, if not the greatest running back ever.
Mhm.
Um, people look at people like Calvin Johnson and Randy Moss, two guys who never won the Super Bowl, but they still get their respect as two of the greatest receivers ever. But you see in the NBA, you notice that if you're not racking up rings, it doesn't matter what you did throughout your career, it kind of doesn't count because we're just in this ring counting culture. Ring counting to me is something that I see specific with the NBA more than other professional sports leagues.
Mhm.
I think Jordan did this. Jordan ruined it. It wasn't his fault, but Jordan three-peated twice. He won 6 championships. From that point on, every great player that came after Jordan, it was a measuring stick of how many championships can you rack up, as if it's an easy thing to do. So it doesn't matter what you achieved throughout your career, what your numbers were, your contributions, how prolific, whether you won MVPs, all NBAs, defensive players of the year, all of that good stuff. We're still going to assert a guy who did all of those things but didn't win championships below a guy who didn't do half of that but maybe won 1 or 2 rings,
Mhm.
not taking into account the circumstances and the nuances that went into how that player was able to win championships. So for Magic Johnson, a guy who won 5 championships, to use the ring argument to disqualify Anthony Edwards, to me, I don't like that. Personally, I don't really like that because at that point, no one should listen to Charles Barkley. He never won championships. And to me, he's one of the greatest players ever and played with a tremendous amount of skill. To be 6'4" and be a prolific rebounder, to me, that takes effort and skill. Um, people like, I don't even like the guy like that, but Karl Malone, to do what he did throughout his career, never won a championship. We shouldn't listen to him. We shouldn't listen to guys like Sean Kemp. We shouldn't listen to guys like, who else? Penny Hardaway, Allen Houston, Allen Iverson, one of your favorite players ever. There's a lot of guys who don't pass that ring argument, who I think have a basketball opinion that nevertheless should be validated. So I don't agree with the rationale of using championships and how many you won as the reason to why anybody should be listened to. Other than that, I get what Magic had to say because he achieved a lot, won all of his MVPs, finals MVPs. He did his thing, won 5 championships. He was the man. And I got to give it to Magic. If you go back and watch old Magic Johnson tape, he was LeBron before LeBron. He was
Mhm.
6'9", could dribble with both hands, could fling the ball past anybody, had eyes in the back of his head. The only real weakness in his game was perimeter shooting, but he made up for that because he can play 1 through 5 on defense. So he reserves the right to have a response to what Anthony Edwards had to say because Edwards was flat out incorrect in his assertion that players lack skill in previous eras. I just don't like the fact that he used the championship thing as his reason for that. I don't like that. There's plenty of players who didn't win rings who nevertheless have valid opinions, and you can't take that away from them because they don't pass that ring counting test.
Yeah, very fair. And because I don't get down with the ring stuff either. I think that was just his. Yeah, again, he didn't have his PR department, with him on this one. Yeah, to help brainstorm on this one, and I'm pretty sure he elaborated into better points. But this is the hot take that's floating around on the internet, and yeah, I agree with the whole premise that Jordan, the Jordan machine, is what started this mess of comparing these guys because I mean, I thought Jordan was the pinnacle until I started doing my research, and I was like, well, Bill Russell's got 9. Now, granted, it was when the league was smaller and the Celtics were stacked compared to everybody else, but he won 9. So I was like, okay, well, if Bill Russell won 9, why isn't he, considered, better than Jordan if we're ring counting?
Right. Yeah.
So the ring counting thing, if you want to start tallying it up, and everybody knows the Robert Ory thing. I got more rings than him still. I'm not in the Hall of Fame. So, you know what I'm saying? Championship rings don't really mean anything. I think this is like new age stuff, and I'm surprised that Magic went there with that. But nevertheless, he did. And I think he went there on some big dog stuff, big dog, little dog things. But I'm telling you, when Ant eventually wins one, now Ant's gonna have something to bark and say, hey, I got mines. But I think what Magic will follow up after that is, hey, get 4 more.
Yeah, yeah,
Matter of fact, get 5 more and outdo me. And until then, you can't talk. And so I'm pretty sure he's going to keep upping the ante on that. But I agree with you, man. The NFL doesn't do this. I don't hear this in baseball. I don't hear this anywhere. This is really only going on in basketball, and I blame the NBA for the product that they're creating. I blame the NBA as an institution for all of this. ESPN can people can throw stones at ESPN and all these sports networks, but they're all in bed together. And these talking points of selling these guys based on rings, to me, is ridiculous. And right now, somebody can say, well, people are saying, that Tom Brady is the best quarterback ever of all time. And, it's debatable, but, he's got all those rings, and who's going to argue with that? So, it's going to start trickling over there because they're doing the Mahomes Brady thing now.
yeah, yeah.
So eventually it's going to work its way over there and start getting messy, because I don't even like the fact that greatest football player of all time has to just be a quarterback. So we're already doing that low key in the NFL. So I'm with you on that. I feel like that's a lazy angle to take, but I'm pretty sure that was just his drop mic moment on, just little guys talking stuff. And Ant, man, again, these young dudes, I don't fault them for this. I really don't fault these guys, but it really is kind of gross. And the young football players, they don't know people either. The young football players, young basketball players especially, though. I mean, they don't know a damn person. And I heard them listing like I heard NFL players, they were saying list obscure NBA players, and they're listing, they don't know nobody from early 2000s.
Yeah.
And they're naming everybody from 2016, 2000. That's like, well, shit, man, that's not very obscure, dude. But again, these young people, as we mentioned, they don't really go back in their archives and do homework. And as I said, I would really hope, if this is your profession, you would do it. I mean, we used to dig in crates, and that was back when basketball was life. Going to sleep with the basketball and walking with it in the hallway in school, and that was it. So, but it became a thing where we would come to school and just talk about stuff that we saw on ESPN, with the Lakers and the Celtics, the playback things and stuff like that. And yeah, we understood it was a different type of basketball, but at the same time, we appreciated the type of basketball that was going on in that era. And so when you talk about Magic and his no-look passes, those were genuine no-look passes. And as you said, those were really eyes on the back of his head, Jason Kidd too, by the way. But when we talk about today's no-look pass, like LeBron's no-looks are hardly not long. He's looking. But it's even worse with Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton got a whole compilation on YouTube. Do yourselves a favor and go look at it. He's got a no-look pass thing. I'm telling you, every no-look pass he made, he's looking dead at the person, makes the pass, and then looks away.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, that's not a real no-look. That's not eyes in the back of your head. But this is, look at the vision from Halliburton. Was it a good vision pass? Yeah, it was. But it wasn't vision that he saw him when nobody else saw him. I mean, he was looking dead at him. So today's day and age, man, it's a little wonky. It's a little weird. And Ant, for somebody that I would hope that would carry the torch, yeah, he's just talking like, another mumble rapper.
He's talking like he watches First Take. Honestly, like that's what Anthony Edwards sounds like.
Nick Wright.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you listen to Nick Wright. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he's listening to all the gumbo saying that he's the next up.
Yes.
And I can't deal with any of that. So yeah, man, get off my lawn moment for me. Sorry, I can't stand this new stuff. But again, man, these young dudes, they're not carrying the torch well, and it shows what they're playing on the court. It's not entertaining, even though they're scoring more points, and that's hard to do. But they're
Yeah,
somehow some way finding a way to do it.
yeah. I think you and I have talked about how you can argue that the league is more technically skilled
Right.
because we're and I told you before, once the LeBron, KD, Steph, and once these players retire,
Oh
we're
Lord.
going to enter into the era of the one-on-one ball skill player because these are all of the basketball players who are coming up trained with a hyperfixation on ball skills.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be SGA and Jason Tatum's league at that point, Anthony Edwards, people like this. And that's all well and good, but don't think that just because they can dribble in tight spots over cones and do step backs and side steps and shoot in awkward angles, that automatically by default translates into better. Like more skilled from the standpoint that that's specialized and takes a certain degree of specialized training, I'll give you that. But to what end does it matter if when you're in a real game, the manner in which you apply that specialized skill is in poor shot selection? See, that's my whole thing. Is like, yeah, I hear all of this. It's more skilled, the players are better, and all of this kind of stuff. But when I'm watching the games, I'm seeing guys on 3-on-1 fast breaks pull up for threes and miss.
Yep.
So my thing is that better basketball? You could have had a guaranteed lob or a layup or a dunk, but you took a lower percentage three ball and missed it. Like, but as a coach and as a fan, I'm supposed to accept that because the analytics say take the three.
Correct.
That to me is a scourge in basketball that I can't stand, and it gets coded as more skilled, and that is a problem. So anybody who suggests that that's not such a great thing, I would agree with that. So I don't like Edwards' comments talking about how it was less skilled back then, because you know that where he's coming from when he says it's more skilled now is that we can shoot in different angles and dribble more. So that's why it's more skilled now. He's not going to give you a nuanced reason as to why it's more skilled. He's just basing it on his perception, which I believe is largely fueled by the media's perpetuation of this idea that it's more skilled because of all of this ball skill stuff and the three-point shooting and the dribbling. You know, I remember they were talking about this with Halliburton one day. I was listening to it on NBA radio. A very knowledgeable fan called in to talk about it on the show. One of those shows I was listening to, and he was roasting Halliburton, and he went through it play by play. It was a playoff game where Halliburton is taking one bad shot after the next. Now, Halliburton, by all accounts, is a part of the new NBA of the highly skilled player. But he gets into the game and takes bad shots and turns the ball over at a high clip. But he knows all of the drills and he has all of these skills and he can do step backs and side steps. So I guess that makes it high skilled. Give me the guaranteed points and the good judgment before you give me all of these dribble moves and these step backs and these side steps. Don't give me a 3-on-1 fast break and you pull up for a three and you miss it when you had a guy open on an angle for a layup or a dunk or a lob. So comments like Edwards to me are annoying because that's where he's coming from when he talks like that. But with respect to Magic, I would also have to respectfully disagree with his notion that Edwards should be disqualified because of the rings argument, just based solely off the fact that I don't like the rings argument. And it's affected the NBA. It's affected how these guys orient their careers. I'm a firm believer that Kevin Durant never signs with the Warriors if he is not aware of the ring counting culture around the NBA. Personally, I believe the primary reason why KD made that choice is because he knew that his career to some degree would be invalidated without rings. As good as he is, he knew that people were going to be like, oh, didn't win championships, so he's not as good as, I don't know, who, you know, name some marginal player who won a couple of championships. They'd say he's better than KD because KD was ringless. So he reverse engineered the situation by playing on it, by signing with a team where he knew he was too big to fail. But it blew up in his face because the media still turned on him and he got no credit anyway. So he ended up just making a bad choice all the way around. But I don't think he would have did that if it weren't for the counting of the rings.
You're right.
So I don't like that ring counting stuff, and it disappoints me when the players buy into it. To hear people like Magic saying, "Oh, my rings is why I'm better," and you're not. And Shaq does it too. "Oh, I won my 4 championships, so that's why my opinion is better than yours." No, Barkley's opinion a lot of times is still better than yours, even though he didn't win rings. So I just don't like the rings thing. But the media, and I agree with you, the NBA in cahoots. They created this dynamic, and they're going to have to live with it because I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, man. And last thing I say about the ring stuff, because you bring up good points, but the bigger overarching point for rings is it's outside of the players themselves. It's also how the organization itself is being run. And if you're not a part of a winning organization, well, you're not going to win. And so you named some people earlier that were talented and didn't have rings. I would argue it was due to how the infrastructure of the team was run. And Barkley would have won championships if the team was run better. Magic won all those rings because his teams were loaded. Bird won because his teams were loaded relatively towards the rest of the league. They were loaded. So, nobody wants to throw super team out there because we weren't talking about super maxes and stuff like that. But if there was like a 2K going on back there, the Celtics starting five, all those guys got 90s and above. Same thing for the Lakers. I mean, they had guys coming off the bench with 85 ratings and plus. They had guys coming off the bench that could have started for the championship level teams. So the Lakers were stacked, the Celtics were stacked. And so when you start to look at it, it was like the Warriors playing other people, and it wasn't fair. It just wasn't. So, come on, man. Magic was playing with Kareem, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, James Worthy.
Yep.
Amongst others.
Byron Scott. Yeah. They were loaded with a lot of great players. Yeah.
Cooper coming off the bench.
Yeah.
I mean, they had dudes all over the place. So yeah, man. So to sit down and big dog talk that stuff when people, you just look at those rosters. And one thing about the Lakers and the Celtics as organizations, before there was the putting Jordan on a pedestal, it was putting franchises on pedestals. So the Lakers and the Celtics were the cash cows, but then they switched from teams to players. And so yeah, my thing is with the league and their marketing, I'm over it, dude. It's not about basketball anymore. It's about marketing and things. So when all of this stuff really starts to, once it left the essence of the game and started to be more or less promote the game, the players' mindset and everything else tapered off with that, until the point now where you get these kids now who don't know a lick of anything from 10 years ago. I mean, they'll say Kobe's name, but who doesn't know Kobe? But they don't even know anybody else from that draft. So yeah, dude. So yeah, I'm over it. I'm over the NBA, to be honest. Once, like you said, those older dudes retire, the KDs, the Stephs, and LeBrons, and all of that stuff, and it's just these guys running around. I try giving them a shot, and I don't like it. So to me, it'll just be fantasy sports and betting. And but for me sitting down and watching 50 games in a season, here or there, those days are over. I can't watch these guys. I'll just stick around for the playoffs. So
yeah, I feel you. And it hurts my heart to hear you say that, but I also can't blame you. It's sad. But yeah, I remember you couldn't pay me to watch more NFL and college football than NBA when I was a kid. Now it's flipped.
yeah.
Now I'm more college football and more NFL than NBA. And it's because of the culture around the NBA. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But yeah, the marketing machine behind the NBA has done it a disservice, in my opinion.
Great.
And it's disappointing to see the players buy into it too, and make decisions based with their careers based off of it. So, but it is what it is. I hear Magic. I understand his frustration, but I don't like the reason behind what he used to go at Edwards over. I don't like that ring count and stuff.
Yeah. Agreed, bro.
Get it right, NBA. Come on, man. Y'all can do it.
No, they can't. No, they cannot. They're done.
Oh gosh. All right, now we have a very viral exchange which took place between Cam Newton and what's this woman's name here?
Dr.
Is it
Bryant.
Dr. Joyce Bryant? Cheyenne Bryant, I'm sorry. Where they basically started talking about family values, marriage, and family. And the part of this interview that went viral in particular was when Cam Newton expressed how he's averse to marriage but wants to continue to have a lot of kids. So for anyone who does not know, Cam Newton is quite the procreator. I think the current count is 8 children by 3 different women. And he was put to task by this woman, Cheyenne Bryant, over what she believes is his selfish approach to raising children, because she believes that the children would be at a deficit. And basically contending Cam's logic behind why he chooses to do what he does, in with respect to like avoiding nuclear families altogether, but still wanting to go for the idea of just being able to have more and more children. Cam Newton is cut from, I would say, the Nick Cannon cloth.
Yeah.
Nick Cannon is who Cam Newton reminds me of when it comes to this kind of thing. But this particular exchange went hella viral with people expressing their views on this. So this says Cam Newton's controversial marriage comments sparked viral discussion. Cam Newton discussed his feelings on marriage during a conversation with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant on his Funky Friday podcast, which has been going viral on social media. In doing so, he revealed that he has 8 children with 3 different women, but isn't opposed to having more. So I'm not going to read his quote because I'm going to end up playing the video anyway. When the Shade Room shared Newton's comments on Instagram, users were highly critical of the former NFL quarterback. Call me crazy, but I'd rather get married than have 8 kids by 3 different people, one fan remarked. Another wrote, "It's no men in the comments. That means she clocked it correctly." So a lot of people had a lot to say, but here were the viral portions of this exchange between Cheyenne Bryant and Cam Newton on having children and marriage and families and all of that good stuff.
A lot of people see my situation and not think that I'm not high function.
What situation?
Okay, so I'm not married. I have beautiful children.
How many?
8.
By how
8.
many women?
3. And this is the kicker. I want more.
By multiple women? What's the intent?
I
I'm
just
saying,
want
or
God
by
to
your
bring
wife?
them. I just want God to bring them.
Oh, okay.
My desire to get married is lower than my fear of divorce. So, as you had said, Dr. Bryant, you said it. I didn't say it. I will agree. I'm just taking my time.
You're not taking your time.
I am, though.
You're being very action-based. You're not taking your time.
I'm taking my time.
You're being very action-based. You have 8 kids with 3 different women.
Yes.
You are creating, procreating, and multiplying. That is not taking your time. You're being very selectively active. Okay? So you're creating, in disclaimer, the kids are innocent. They are beautiful and amazing. Anything I say has nothing to do with them babies. But you are proactively choosing where you want
And here's part 2.
with them babies. But you are proactively choosing where you want to be active at and where you want to take your time. You want to take your time in having a wife because of your own fears. But you will, and I say this with all respect and love, what I'm about to say next, okay, Cam? But you will selfishly create broken families, even if you're in their life and you're a proactive father, and I believe you're an amazing daddy. I can only imagine with just your presence and knowing you. But these families are still broken. Every child cannot have Papa in the house with them. So some child, if not all will end up with some kind of deficit without daddy being there. Now, you chose to do that. I'm not saying you sat there and woke up one morning and said, I want to be selfish today, so I'm going to go make a baby. Not saying that at all. But those are selfish acts at the expense of your fear. And yeah, that is a low functioning behavior to say that I'm going to build these houses and put kids and these beautiful women and kids in them, but I ain't going to create a home. And
All right, so she calls it a low functioning behavior. So a lot of people had a lot to say about that, and I didn't read too much into the comments, but from what I saw, it kind of seemed like it's split, with people saying that they hear where Cam is coming from, but people also saying that Cam is the worst person in the history of human civilization.
Yeah, bet.
So, so what did you make of that exchange, and where Cam stands on that, and then Dr. Bryant's response to his approach to how he likes to do things?
Okay, so now watching this clip, I had to get more context, so I did a little digging. I've never heard of this woman. So after watching more of this and getting more context, okay, she is a single woman. She's not married. She doesn't have kids, and she counsels married people and tries to get them to come together. She word saladed her way into explaining why a single woman can help married people. I'm not saying that they can't, but she comes off real holier than thou with this stance that she knows more than all, and she used that to antagonize Cam Newton in this situation. Now, for Cam in his situation where he's saying, "Hey, yes, I do have 8 kids from 3 different baby mothers." Cam later on says that, "Hey, all 8 of those kids are living with me, so there's no division going on." So then she goes, "Well, are the women living there?" And then he says, "Well, no." Well, she says, "Well, the homes are still broken." I don't care for the term broken in this context, because the family in this context, although she wants to say that it's blended, she says blended family. I like the word family at the end of it, and I like blended. It's a different type of family structure than mono, but at the same time, it is a family structure and an understanding that Cam has with his baby mothers. So since Cam has an understanding with his baby mother, since the kids all live with him, and he's there mentally, financially, and emotionally supporting these children, I don't see why there's a problem if he wants to introduce more into this blended family. I think that there's more than one way to skin a cat in this context, and he's skinning it with boiling water. All right. Right? She might want to use a scalpel or something, but that's fine, woman. That's all on you. But Cam is still making this thing happen, and he seems to be keeping his family afloat. This same woman has a viral thing going out there with Nick Cannon, and she's attacking Nick Cannon using psychological tactics like reflection and other things to flip the script on anything Nick Cannon was saying to make it seem like he's insecure in his own manhood is why he got to come out here and slay all these women. I wish that was the truth, Miss Dr. Bryant. But I would say in both Cam Newton's context and in Nick Cannon, so we'll stick with Cam. But for her to be targeting these gentlemen and using these slanderous terms, saying broken family, I feel as though it's unnecessarily inflammatory. Now, if anybody's watched any of our videos dealing with relationships and marriages and stuff like that, I have a pretty much open stance when it comes to how certain people want to live their lives. I don't think everybody is built for monogamy. Don't. Especially with today's day and age with so many influences going on, where people have a appetite for more than one person. And my solution to all of these broken families is to do what Cam and Nick Cannon are doing in a way where they're having these blended families and trying to make that work, having family get-togethers when there's 2 different or whatever, 3 different people or whatever, and they're just all making it work and everybody's all happy and it's a family still. Yeah, there's 3 different last names going on, but everybody is still working together and moving towards upward mobility. So I think that there's ways that somebody could have a situation like Cam Newton, especially in a position that he's in where he can financially support all these children and financially support these women, apparently. So if he can't afford these things, I don't feel like what he's doing is broken at all. But I think this is dangerous rhetoric coming from a woman who's saying that she's a doctor. And I think that what's going to end up happening with this, I felt like there was a levels of progression of what these two gentlemen were doing, Cam Newton and Nick Cannon, and to a certain extent, that they were being men. Yes, they're out here having all these children, but they're being family men with this. Much different than the context that we heard, when we were growing up, where all these guys were just rolling stones. So I would like to commend Cam from, at least aesthetically, from what I can see, that he is doing a good job trying to be the best father he can be. And why not have more if you can afford more? And I think that Miss Bryant here is a little bit too judgmental, and somebody that is a doctor should be able to be a lot more open with concepts of a man trying to be there for his children and be there for the children's mothers. So I don't agree with this woman. I think that she is dangerous and she's spewing dangerous rhetoric. But what are your thoughts, sir, on Mrs. Bryant, Dr. Bryant, that is, scolding Cam Newton, saying that he's a what? What's the term she gave him?
Low functioning behavior.
Low functioning behavior. What are your thoughts, sir?
I hear all of that. I hear where you're coming from. I think at times I think it's possible, not to defend her, I don't know her, but I think at times it's possible that we may be giving people like Nick Cannon and Cam Newton too much credit, from the standpoint that we don't know that their motivations behind what they're doing has anything to do with anything other than them just wanting to have sex with as many women as possible. Like, I don't know Nick Cannon personally, and I don't know Cam Newton personally, but I do know that their social status and resources puts them in a unique position in which their family structure doesn't immediately disqualify them from being perceived as an ideal prospect for other women. Whereas a guy on the street who may have 8 children by 3 different women is going to be looked upon as an undesirable prospect by what I would consider a lot of women today. So I'm not necessarily saying that Bryant is right or wrong, but I think sometimes, I don't know what goes on in Cam Newton and Nick Cannon's head, but I think it's easy to optically be the family man who's trying to make it all work, because, and that's a commendable thing, as in, you planted the seed, now handle your responsibilities with respect to what it's going to take to bring them up in a semi-stable environment. But the impetus for having all of these children is what exactly? To really be, one big polygamous family? Or do you really just have a big appetite for women and you don't care if you get any of them pregnant? Like, that could be one of the things, and we don't know, because I'm not in Cam Newton's head, nor am I in Nick Cannon's head. I will say, nevertheless, at the end of the day, that taking care of your responsibilities, particularly financially, but also in terms of physical proximity, is something that you should do nevertheless. When it comes to this woman here, words like broken, that's strong language. Because if the kids are in an environment which allows them to be able to thrive, I can't really call that broken. Broken is broken, like you just don't have a chance.
Correct.
Broken is like you're coming up in an environment where there is a high statistical likelihood that you're going to end up in some kind of a system. Like, that to me is broken. But if you're in an environment where you have the potential to be highly functioning, it's difficult for me to characterize that as broken. So I feel like her use of that word is a bit strong. But where I think she's coming from with using that word is, I think she is using Cam Newton as like a conduit to communicate this type of dynamic taking place in regular society with people who are not Cam Newton. Like, I would imagine Cam Newton having 8 children by 3 different women means something entirely different than Big Steve, down the street from you having 8 kids by 3 different women. That may indeed be a broken setup. So perhaps what she is trying to do is sort of correlate what Cam Newton is doing with what she sees more often than not throughout her practice, which is from a statistical standpoint, what she is looking at more often than not when it comes to situations like that is indeed situations in which kids are being brought up in an environment that sets them up more for failure than success. Now, I don't know. I'm somewhat putting words in her mouth from that standpoint, but I would imagine when she's not dealing with high caliber celebrities, millionaires, and people who can afford to do these things, she's probably counseling people in regular everyday life who do not have the wherewithal from a mental, emotional, or financial standpoint to conduct themselves this way, but find themselves doing it anyway. And now you have a situation where you have these individuals who are out here having all of these babies, and they don't have an ounce of a wherewithal in the world for how they are going to successfully manage these situations. So I think Cam Newton, and to a certain extent, Nick Cannon is one thing, but I think everyone else is another. And I think what she may be doing in this instance is operating from a position of confirmation bias, because she's seeing how the majority of the world handles these types of setups and sort of conflating that with how Cam and Nick Cannon operate these kinds of setups, which admittedly isn't necessarily fair to Cam and Nick Cannon, because again, perhaps they can do it in a reasonable way. But I think most people cannot do it in a reasonable way. Most people who do this do it in a very dysfunctional, highly toxic scenario, in my opinion. Not everybody can afford it. Most people can't afford it. And not everyone has the mental and emotional acuity to be able to do it successfully. And the last thing that I'll say is, when it comes to the children specifically, regardless of the intent of the parents or people like Cannon and Newton, the way that I look at it is, what is optimal for the children? I think people like this Dr. Bryant woman look at it from the perspective of, in her eyes, what is most optimal for the children. And I think what would be most optimal for children is being in an environment where mom or dad, whether it's the man or the woman, it doesn't matter which one, is present more often than not, and is not being stretched too thin in terms of the bandwidth that they have available to allocate to however many children or wives or girlfriends or baby mothers they may have. I think in any given family structure, that is what's most optimal. That doesn't mean that children don't have the chance to thrive in situations that are not like that. It's just to suggest what kind of setup would be most optimal. And I don't think, in my opinion, a man with 8 children by 3 different women, who is by default going to have to stretch himself across that situation, I don't think that is more optimal for those individual children than a guy who may have less children or less baby mothers or wives or girlfriends to contend with, in terms of being able to allocate the necessary bandwidth to those kids so that they are, to use her word, not operating at a deficit. So there's multiple angles to look at this from. I think one of the angles one can look at this from is what would be most optimal for the children. And I think another angle to look at it from is, in everyday practice, more often than not, how do these types of setups play out on the ground floor, in the streets, with everyday people, with people not named Nick Cannon and Cam Newton? Now, could she have done a better job of having some understanding and clarifying that the way that Newton's approach to this could indeed be more high functioning than what she may be accustomed to encountering? Perhaps. So I'll definitely grant you that. But I think that there's something to be said about what's going on with people who are doing this irresponsibly, and they're not named Cam Newton and Nick Cannon. They don't have the financial means to do it adequately, the emotional, the spiritual, or the mental means to do it adequately. Thereby, you do have children who are, in fact, growing up in environments where they are operating at a deficit. So maybe that's where she's coming from with this, but I do think that there are multiple angles to tackle it from. And the truth, like most of these topics that we cover, in all likelihood lands somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fair. The one pushback that I would give is, at least in the context that, because you say you're not sure if these guys are just doing it for the cat or they're actually trying to raise families. Well, these guys can have sex with whoever they want. Cam has had sex with more than 3 women. All right. But he's had children with just 3. And if he was, and I would also argue, if he's not trying to be there for his kids, well, he wouldn't. And
No, I wouldn't argue that.
not that he won't be there with the kids. Let me rephrase that.
Okay.
If he was just having sex with these women, just like how guys in the streets are just having sex with these women, and whoop, I got her pregnant, and I don't care about responsibilities, those dudes just dip. And Cam would just be dipping and just paying child support. Same thing for Nick Cannon. But these people, they have agreements. And the reason why this, to me, is something that I think people should look more into is because, again, people are out here already doing it. So, and so I think that what these guys are doing, they have the capital to do it, but that's what it always required in history. And polygamy wasn't something that just went on because guys just wanted a whole bunch of vagina, as much as modern society would like to make that seem a thing. If you had one woman, trust me, sir, you know what I'm saying? Or sirs or ma'ams. All right. If you had one woman, that's already a tall enough task. I mean, you're not going to sit here and want 3 more wives unless it meant something and there was a reason behind it. So, and there was a reason behind why it was done predominantly in African cultures and stuff like that, because it served as a stabilizing force within our community. If the guy could afford it, he could have those many wives. And it wasn't because, oh yeah, so I can get all this cat. It's multifaceted and it serves many purposes. I'll give one example. So if there's a woman, let's say that this guy has 2 wives or 3 wives, and one of them's, with child. Okay. The father doesn't have time to be sitting there tending to her. He doesn't. Why doesn't he have time for that? Well, he's got to go out there and make the money. He's got to go out there and make the plays. So he's a busy person and he doesn't have time for the mental, emotional, and all of that stuff that goes on. So that's what the sister wives are there for. The sister wives are there to be the midwife, to be all these other things. So while she's nursing and doing all this stuff and she needs care and all this affection and all this stuff, that's what the other women are there for. But when that has been removed and then that's all on the guy's shoulder, that is a lot of responsibility. He's still got to go make the money. He's still got to go do all this other stuff. And now he's got to come home and do all the emotional support and all these other things. This is just one aspect of it. But there's many ways that when it comes to child rearing and other things, that polygamy served a purpose traditionally in history. Then you would have to look to see when monogamy came into play and what its purpose served. And I'm trying to tell you right now, human nature, we've all seen it on display right now. Everybody's cheating on everybody. Why? Because the structure that's set up right now, I think, is not a sustainable structure. It fits some people, not all. So that's like giving everybody one religion. That's like giving everybody one one type of food to eat. And all there's kind of different types of palates out there, different personalities out there. So not everything's going to work for everybody else. So for her to be running around saying that it's a broken home because it doesn't fit the criteria of whatever she studied in her textbooks, then I would say that she would need to look a little bit deeper. I would also argue that she would need to be running around here getting married before she go around hollering that somebody got a broken home. And so, and to tie back into her childhood, because I was sitting there watching the stuff, and she was talking about her dope boy daddy, and her dad was a dope boy street dude, and how he wasn't, her and her mama, the mama and them, they didn't really get along or whatever, but he was still present. And his presence of teaching her this, the right from wrong, being like this, being a street dude, so she don't need to get a street dude, because she already, has one in her father, and all of this other dynamics and stuff like that. She was talking out of both sides of her mouth. She was giving Cam Newton praise for being there like her daddy was. But at the same time, she was saying that, oh yeah, but your kids are going to have to learn from your mistakes and be a better version of yourself. Duh. That's what everybody's, is here to do as a child, is to be a better version than their parents were. And then, the same thing goes on when you have kids. You want your children to have better life choices. But better life choices doesn't mean that his children or his male sons or his daughters won't find themselves in a romantic situation like that later. The whole thing is did you come out functional? This lady will holler that she came out functional, even though she came from a broken home. So how can you sit there and talk about his kids and say that they're going to come up in a weird way when they're growing up in an air quote broken home? So this lady was talking out of both sides of her mouth. She was giving hot takes and hot points. And when I'm sitting there and when people on the internet are going to get their hands on this stuff, I'm pretty sure, yeah, the women are going to say that she was eating it up. Of course, they would love to hear that. All right. But I would say that in this context, all right, I think this is a very nuanced conversation, and that monogamy is not the only way. I'm not some polygamous thing. I'm not some blah, blah, blah. I don't care what anybody does in their own house. But what I'm saying is the reason why polygamy is a 4-letter word to me is conspiratorial. And I think that if there were more polygamous households going on, society would be a better place. And so to sit here and say that monogamy is bad, no. I think marriage is a good thing. I think marriage keeps you out of trouble. It keeps you focused. It keeps you determined. And Cam is in a pseudo marriage. He doesn't have to file paperwork with the state in order to run a functional household with his 3 women. So I'm not going to sit here and agree with this woman on any context. I feel as though she needs to have a greater understanding of what she's talking about, because if anybody watched her talking, they would hear her double talk. So it's not that I'm some champion for Cam Newton or anything like that. I just appreciate what these gentlemen are doing aesthetically. I don't know what's going on in their houses, but at least from the outside looking in, they're financially taking care of their kids because they can't afford to. And that's the definition of polygamy. And I'm telling you right now, if Cam Newton run outside the house right now, everybody knows he's got 8 kids from 3 baby mamas. I bet he'll have candidate number 4 baby mama trying to have baby number 9. And they know everything about what he's got going on, and they're willing to sign up for it. So at that point, what's dysfunctional about that? So I'm not going to sit here and say that polygamy is a 4-letter word. I think that people need to broaden their horizons. And with all these divorce rates going on, maybe monogamy may not be for you. So yeah, I don't agree with this woman. I think it's dangerous rhetoric. I think she needs to hit the drawing board and to be better, to be honest.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I think the numbers bear that it's not working in either direction. I think I don't like. Obviously, people who have a more laissez-faire approach to raising families and having children, who don't necessarily look into the monogamy setup. They aren't calling it polygamy. Like, people don't put a word on it, but they do have multiple strings of DNA going in multiple directions with multiple partners. And I think the current manifestation of that, from what we can see statistically, is it's not functional. People aren't conducting it in a functional manner. And maybe one can argue that in an alternate universe, people can educate themselves on what polygamy actually means and do it the right way. But as currently constructed, most people who are having multiple partners and multiple children by different people are doing it in a dysfunctional, toxic manner. They're not approaching it responsibly or structurally. And I think for people now, her with the double talk is one thing. That's fine. But I think most people who would thumb their nose up at the idea of something like this making sense are people who are using case studies from real life individuals as their evidence to why it doesn't work. And I think most people who are doing it in this way are doing it in a way that is not sustainable. So there's a lack of sustainability going on both sides. People who are trying to have as many kids by as many different people as they want, and people who are trying to be monogamous and trying to force square pegs into round holes when they know that monogamy and that particular form of setup isn't for them either. And I think for those who are doing it in a toxic, dysfunctional way, where there's just multiple baby mamas and baby daddies and multiple kids and all of this kind of stuff, parents, particularly fathers, are being stretched thin. Some of them are absentee, and that doesn't lend itself to a functional environment where kids are being raised for success. And I think that it's reasonable for someone to surmise that more often than not, that's what's taking place with people on the ground level who are doing things the Cam Newton way. Again, I can't speak for Cam Newton, because maybe he is doing this on purpose, and handling it the way he wants to. And if it works and everybody's happy and the women don't feel no type of way about it, then who am I to say anything? I don't give a damn. But I don't think everybody's Cam Newton is the point. And I think most often when we see this happening with regular people not named Cam Newton, it isn't like this. It's far more dysfunctional, it's far more toxic, and it's far more dangerous with respect to a child's development. So I don't think it's unreasonable for one who looks at it that way to say what would be most optimal for the children. Now, of course, we're going to get into the weeds with this conversation because it's heavily nuanced. Now you're getting into matters of personal responsibility and doing the right thing based upon what would be right in so much as how do you look at the world. And that's a rabbit hole that we don't have enough time to go down. But on the surface, I think that I think what you're saying has validity to it. But I think in practice today in 2024, most people don't do it that way. They're doing it in a way that is the opposite of functional. And I think that the kids are paying the greatest price for it.
And I would say that people are doing monogamy the wrong way. And
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. I think
Right.
I think people who are doing that are trying to fit square pegs in round holes. So you need to conversation needs to be had. People need to be honest with who they are, and you need to understand who you are and adjust your life accordingly and make those right kinds of decisions. Doing it either way when it doesn't fit you isn't the answer.
Right.
So I'm not trying to champion monogamy either. I'm not trying to champion the nuclear setup where it's man, woman, and even if things are toxic and dysfunctional, you're trying to force it to make it work for the sake of the kids because that screws up kids too. So I'm not saying that that's the way to do it either, but it's no right or wrong answer is my point. And if anyone wants to look at that way, the Cam Newton model as being suboptimal with respect to what can happen to kids mentally and emotionally, I don't think that they're wrong because they probably have a lot of case studies of what's going on in that way to cite why it doesn't make sense. But you can also look at people who get married and are doing it the wrong way too. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
But I do one place in which I will agree with you on is generally speaking, people don't have honest conversations with potential partners or even with themselves,
No.
and just embrace who they are and do things the way that they want to do it. If you still want to be in the streets, despite the fact that you have a longing or an urge to have children, and you need to listen to that voice and be honest with who you are, because I think in either direction, you're doing a disservice to like people in general, but kids more specifically, when we continue to try to fit these square pegs into round holes in either direction.
Yeah, and I agree, man. And so I'm not saying this is for everybody. The reason why I guess defend Cam Newton and Nick Cannon is because the caveat here is they can afford it. So if you can afford it, do it. But if you can't afford to do it. And in American society, in order to be able to afford to have as many kids you want from as many women as you want, you're gonna have to have a bag. These guys got bags relatively than other people. So yeah, Pookie and Ray Ray down the street, they don't have the bag. So yeah, I'm not saying they should go do it. So I'm saying that you need to be able to financially support that. And so yeah, to each their own, man. But I just don't like that default monogamy is the answer. And I think that that's not the answer. It's not the default. I think everybody has their own defaults. And I think to be in either one of those contexts, you need to be a mature person and know who you are and be honest with yourself, like you mentioned. And that's not going on in American society because that's not even being promoted. So salacious sex and everything that you want and desire at your fingertips, microwave society, pornography on everything that you look at. I mean, you can go on TikTok and find something scandalous. So the whole premise is that everybody's out of their damn minds. And then when you try to get those people to get in a relationship, you're going to get all the dysfunction that we're getting now. So for her to sit there and throw stones as if she don't live a dysfunctional life is my problem with her. Cam Newton's got a whole situation going, 8 kids, 3 different women. And I would say that he's pseudo married to them. And then this woman here, single, no kids, no nothing, well in her 30s, sitting there barking that he ain't got his life together. I would argue it's the other way around. So Yeah, my thoughts, bro. That's how I feel about it.
No, yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you. I just, yeah, we don't know her dating history, but it is interesting. Yeah, that's funny. I hear all of that because I would like to. It would be interesting to know the kind of men that she's been with.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I will say, at least she is not herself a single mom, because at least from a profile standpoint, she can stand on business in terms of what she preaches. But the holes in her relative arguments is something that one can contest if you chose to. So I also don't disagree with that as well. I think the crux of this whole thing isn't about whether it's a good idea to be having a lot of kids by different people or to be monogamous. In my opinion, that's not the crux of the conversation. In my opinion, the crux of the conversation is people being more principled and responsible with how they orient their lives.
Right.
Whether you choose to be a polygamous or a polyamorous person, or whether you choose to be a serial monogamous, you just need to be responsible with how you do things.
Correct.
And I think what's being encouraged to people these days is YOLO. Do whatever you want and don't care about the consequences. Whether you want to be a polygamous or a monogamous, it's just being force-fed to people that there are no rules and you can just do whatever you want. That's really the problem. Because if you're a principled, responsible person, if you want to do the Cam Newton thing and do it responsibly, to me, that makes more sense than doing monogamy and you're fighting and fussing and arguing with your wife or your spouse every day, and the kids are exposed to that. Exactly. And now they're going to grow up dysfunctional as hell because they saw y'all fighting every day.
Exactly.
So obviously there's multiple ways to skin a cat, but to me, the problem with this whole thing is people in general are being encouraged to live life devoid of responsibility. And people like her don't pay enough lip service to that. They rather choose to contend the decisions that people like Cam Newton make without contending the decisions that people personally make in terms of how they are living. So I think that's the real issue here, but everything else can just fall by the wayside.
No, 100, man. Hey, and ladies, let me know where I went wrong down in the comment section. All right, just take it easy on me. All right, I am a guy after all.
Yeah.
I only think with one organ on my body, so excuse me if I'm wrong on that one. But nah, man, I agree with you, bro. So yeah, we'll see. The very nuanced situation, but I just didn't. I think that she should have been a little bit more open-minded as a doctor.
Well, doctor can mean a lot of things these days.
Dr. Drake.
Yeah. Shouts out to Cam, bro. His podcast is doing numbers. So yeah, he can't afford to pay for whatever it is he got to pay for. That's for sure.
Yeah, and shout out to Dr. Bryant. If you come across this video, hell, we'll interview you. You know what I'm saying? What's going on?
All right, now we have the latest edition of Kamala Harris debate. This time it involves Plies, hip hop rapper extraordinaire Plies, who has a message to black men who don't vote for Kamala Harris. So here we go. What do you call it? What's the word you use? Boulets. I had to look that up. I never heard that word. I'd never heard that word before. I had to look that up. Yeah. But yeah, the weaponization of identity politics is in full effect with Kamala Harris. And here's another agent in this way, Mr. Plies, who has an issue with black men who don't vote for Kamala Harris. So we have talked about Kamala Harris on this channel at this point several times. I encourage anybody to go through our library and check out some of those videos and let us know what you think. This will be the latest addition to that, obviously. But this says, Plies questions black men who don't support Kamala Harris. Plies addresses black voters who won't be supporting Kamala Harris in the upcoming presidential election in a post on X on Saturday. In doing so, he told them to look to their own daughters or nieces. Dear black men who searching for reason to not like Kamala Harris, look your daughters or nieces in their face and tell them it'll be men like yourself who are going to question their blackness, their resume, and their existence. if they ever try to do the impossible in this country. His argument garnered mixed results from his followers. One user replied, "We evaluate political figures based on their policies, actions, and track record, regardless of their race or gender. Holding our leaders accountable ensures that those in power genuinely advocate for the interests of the communities they represent." Others agree with the hypnotized rapper. "Talk to him," one user wrote. Plies has been very vocal about supporting Vice President Kamala Harris since she took over for Joe Biden in campaigning as the Democratic nominee. Quote, "This was a sad day for mainstream media and everyone else who took pride in beating up on an 81-year-old man who had a speech impediment, stuttering disorder," Plies wrote online after Biden dropped out of the race. "Y'all hoped it never ended. Y'all treated him like the convicted felon and treated the convicted felon like he was the president." Harris is running against former President Donald Trump, who recently earned the endorsement of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Check out Plies' remarks on Kamala Harris below. So there's the Twitter post on what Plies had to say. So this is identity politics being used as a weapon, in my opinion. But I will let you give your thoughts on Plies chastising black men who feel some type of way and don't want to vote for Kamala Harris, saying that they're going to have to look their daughters and nieces in the face and tell them that it's because of people like you, black men, who are not voting for Kamala Harris, who are going to have to who are going to have to face the music when their daughters and nieces' blackness and resume are questioned when they try to achieve greatness. That's his logic. So what do you make of what Plies had to say?
Man, I mean, similar to Anthony Edwards, just not informed, just a not informed take. And the irony here, coming from Plies himself, one who actually, makes music about felons and stuff like that, like as if, as if like, hey man, we people too, dog, we humans too. So, but a convicted felon's running for president, so that's a problem now. But I mean, I'm pretty sure in some point of his career, in conversation or something like that, he would argue that why can't even convicted felons vote? Why can't convicted felons carry arms? Why couldn't a convicted felon actually be president? And this is somebody that's coming from the streets, who's always vouching for street dudes who are running around here with felonies. So for him to use felony as a 4-letter word in order to promote this woman comes off very ironic to me. The next thing is that what else did he say? Oh, the whole thing about tell your daughters and your nieces and all this other stuff that men like you. What do you get at that? And so for my daughter or my niece or whatever, and I'm sitting there and I'm talking to him, I would explain to them in very great detail why I wouldn't vote for this woman of color. Okay. And it wouldn't be a reason why, it wouldn't be a thing that me telling them that they couldn't run. I would say in a situation that this woman here, she doesn't pass the sniff test because of her track record and her history. You want to talk about, resumes and stuff. This woman here, you go look it up, everybody. This dude running around right now and, doing interviews and stuff like that, expressing how this woman here was keeping him in jail under false pretenses and prison under false pretenses, trying to give him 50 years, just so she can look good in her district, just so she can look good in California. And so, of course, it all comes out that, hey, this guy gets exonerated. All of the stuff that she was holding against this man, this is the woman here. This is on her resume, putting black men in prison unjustly. So for Plies, a man who's supposed to be representing the streets and the street people, and he want to sit here and vouch for a woman with a resume like that. So I'm not going to sit here and let him try to talk down to me, Plies. Yeah, I'm not gonna let you do that, bro. So you can take this check or whatever you got, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because they clearly cut you a check. Hey man, get these street dudes on our side. You know what I'm saying? They got Plies going. They got Uncle Luke going crazy. South Florida's taking L's with this one. And so yeah, so Plies Luke, you know, what's the other guy name? Not Tavis Smiley. What's the boy? Ricky Smiley. Steve Harvey. I mean, these dudes are coming out of the woodwork attacking us as black people just because we have an opinion. So I'm sorry, Plies. I can't go for this. Your contradictions are all over the place with this one. You don't have a leg to stand on with this. And honestly, if I was some street dude that was running around as a felon that looked up to this dude because he was supposed to be the voice and mouthpiece for me, and I know about Kamala's resume and all that stuff, and you still want to sit there and turn your back on us to vouch for her, I would not be a fan of this man no more. But hey, man, who knows? Hopefully these guys out here doing their research instead of saying he eating. But what are your thoughts, man, on Sir Plies saying that, hey, you ain't black if you ain't voting for Kamala? What are your thoughts, bro?
That is essentially what he said. So, you know, he goes, dear black men who's searching for a reason to not like Kamala Harris, look your daughters and nieces in their face and tell them it'll be men like yourself who are going to question their blackness. So based upon that statement, it sounds like he has a problem with the existence of the dynamic of black people's blackness being questioned. Mm-hmm. It just so happens that he views Kamala Harris being voted as a mechanism by which we can move forward towards eradicating that. Mm-hmm. So somewhere in his mind, he believes as though Kamala Harris being voted puts us in a step in the right direction towards eradicating the existence of black people's blackness being questioned based upon decisions that they made. So in other words, however, if one does not vote for Kamala Harris, Plies, I would imagine you yourself is going to question that person's blackness. Mm-hmm. So like if any other black person doesn't vote for Kamala Harris, in Plies' mind, he's questioning their blackness. Mm-hmm. How is that any better or worse? Right? Like how is that any different rather than what you're suggesting when you say black men not voting for Kamala Harris is perpetuating the narrative of black women's blackness being questioned? You're putting into the atmosphere the idea that black people have to monolithically adhere to certain themes in order to reinforce their blackness. So in a roundabout way, and I don't even know if he realizes this or not, but in a roundabout way, when you put a statement out like that, you're reinforcing the very thing that you protest against.
Exactly.
Which is a black woman's blackness being questioned. Mm-hmm. Because you're saying if you don't vote for this woman, your blackness is in question.
Yep.
You're literally doing both of those things simultaneously. You can't make that up. Mm-mm. I have to believe he does not realize that he's doing that. Otherwise, why would you say that? That doesn't make any sense. Like, honestly, more like I can go on and on about identity politics, obviously, but really this confuses me more than anything. You know, it would be like a basketball player saying, you know, for all y'all basketball players out here who can't shoot, don't put it out there that if you can't shoot, you're not a real basketball player, even though you need to be able to know how to shoot. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Now that's double talk if I've ever heard it. Like he's literally simultaneously saying, if you don't vote for her, your blackness should be questioned, but you should vote for her because we want to eliminate black people's blackness being questioned.
Yes.
So this is a rudimentary form of identity politics to me, and I, of course, don't agree with it. But, you know, honestly, I could have predicted this. This is just what's going to happen here. Here's what I'll do constructively. In my opinion, if you are black and you are an independent thinker, don't listen to people like Plies. Now, that does not mean don't vote for her. Vote for whoever the hell you want. But it needs to be a person. You need to vote for her because you believe, based upon your own research and your edification of the issues, that she is the right person for you. not because you believe that because you're black, you're supposed to vote for her. Because as Dogon put out there, there is a record of her public service, which shows that for at least a period of her career, she was actively being anti-black in certain
Yes.
in certain respects.
Yes.
Now, that to me is not something that, like, I've been off this DNC train. I've already talked about how, stop and frisk was implemented during a Democratic administration with the Clintons. Like, these were things that adversely directly impacted black people, and they were impacted during a presidential administration that most people view as good for black people, which was Bill Clinton's administration. Meanwhile, in New York City, they were actively implementing stop and frisk, and out west, they were actively implementing 3 strikes. So, like, you need to do your own research and not allow people to utilize these bully tactics and having you believe that because you look a particular kind of way, you have some sort of moral obligation to exercise your right. You don't. And again, that does not mean you should not vote for her. I don't give a shit who you vote for, but it has to be a decision that you're making for yourself based upon your personal situation and those you care about. If you got a family, what's going to make the most sense for your family and all of that good stuff. Don't just do it mechanically because you feel like you're obligated to do so without researching the issues. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is your personal setup? People who wake up and work for a living and take their kids to school, for example, don't care about what's going on at the border. Yet the border is her current claim to fame, at least publicly. So, like, these are things that most people on a day-to-day basis are not thinking about. So do your due diligence on the issues before you decide to blindly pencil in your bubble sheet for one particular individuals. And just don't listen to people like Plies, because it's people like Plies who will have you believe that being an independent thinker is inherently wrong. And it's not.
Hey, man, well said, bro. But I'm telling you right now, they commissioned Plies so he can talk to a particular demographic. Now, we covered when she tried to pay Kai Cenat to cover her and to vouch for her. But they got Charlemagne on payroll. Like I said, they got Smiley on payroll, Steve Harvey, and now we can throw in Plies, who got a check for this.
Quavo,
Meg Thee Stallion, right? So there's a clip floating around online right now. Kamala saying, me, do something just for black people? No, I'm not going to just do something just for black. No. And so what are her policies for black people? Can anybody tell me that's telling me to vote for this woman? All these boule people unmuting and telling me what to do with my mind. What is she talking about doing for our people?
For the people who, and that's a very good question, and that's specifically for the people who participate in this process based on this stuff.
Exactly.
Right. So if your participation in this process is based on race,
right?
Yeah, you need to be asking yourself those questions.
Exactly.
For sure. 100%.
They say vote for her because she's black. Okay, fine. What is she going to do for black people? And she says, well, I'm not going to do anything for black. No, I'm not. Just black people? No. So, okay, so what am I here to do? And then Steve Harvey goes, see, I'll give her these easy questions so she can slam dunk it. I'm not going to sit here and ask her what she going to do for black people. If she sit there and tell her what she going to do for black people, she's not going to get elected. We got to play the game. No. You playing us, Steve Harvey. Y'all, this party has been playing this game with black people since civil rights and beyond. And they're playing the same game. And so my thing is, so for the people out there that do have a mind for themselves, people that did do history checks and look on things and fact check this woman's past and stuff like that, who have a mind for themselves, are going to question her. And just because I'm questioning this woman and her integrity and what she stands for and what she all about, that doesn't mean that I'm questioning my own blackness or anything else in between.
It's actually the opposite.
Exactly.
you're being more black by questioning it. That's
what I'm saying. The irony of this entire situation is back. So for these people trying to guilt trip me into me being not black, because I'm questioning this woman, it's the most ridiculous thing ever. And then so when you look at the political arena and who actually gets things done for them after somebody gets elected, it's because they actually have what do you call those things? Lobby groups. And black people, we don't have a legitimate lobby group. Our lobby groups have been co-opted and compromised, or just completely built from the ground up by another people. But I can tell you this, the Asian community that has their lobby action going on here, that got enough to get the Asian hate bill passed, okay, those people, that's run by Asians. And you know, the Israel situation, they have their own lobbyists. Everybody has their own lobbyists. And so, but when they look at our lobby groups, the NAACP, compromised. What's that? The Black Caucus, compromise.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter, compromise. And these are the things that they're vouching for us. Black Lives Matter, you go on their page, you see a whole bunch of rainbow colors. They're not standing for us. NAACP, hell, they're giving an award to Power and P-Valley. They're not looking out for the best interests of our people. And these are the lobby groups that's sitting up there talking to the politicians. So we don't have a real lobby group. That's our problem. Isn't having a black politician. Our problem is the black lobby groups that are up there running with fat cats and boule people. So what is the real problem here? Is it the political system, or is it us not voting for somebody because of their identity? The political system's a racket, and everybody that's supposed to be representing us in the lobby groups and the lobby areas and all that stuff like that are not working for us. So sorry, Plies. You just took a paycheck. You know what I'm saying? What are you doing right now? What are you doing? What are you streaming something? What are your album coming out? What do you got going on? You got absolutely nothing. And so he's only pandering to everybody that's on his IG, because nobody follows him on any other platform. And so he just dropped this on his IG to all the street people. So my thing for all the street people out there, if somebody's watching this or whatever, my thing is he insulted y'all by insinuating that this woman's record isn't a reflection of y'all life when y'all got the gavel banged on you in the wrong and unjust way. This woman did the same thing, and now she wants to run for president. What do you think she's going to do with the rest of when she really got power? So sorry, Plies. I'm not buying any of this identity politics garbage. Sorry, Kamala. I'm not voting for you. But hey, Trump, I'm not voting for you either, sir.
Yeah, it's just disappointing, but you know, it is what it is. I think people should do an ample amount of research on the history of the DNC, and then just look up what her record of public service is. It can't be all about the border. Her record as a prosecutor and things of that nature. Just without applying the lesser of two evils angle to inform your decision.
Yes.
What is it about her record of public service that makes sense? And my thing is, I'm not trying to champion either side, but what I do champion is doing something mechanically without having a mind of your own behind it. So if you want to vote for her, go for it. But it needs to be a decision that you're making of your own volition. It can't be because you feel as though you have a moral obligation to do so based upon certain parameters that you, quite frankly, don't have any control over. It just has to be something that you're doing because you feel deeply that it is something that would be right for you. And don't apply the lesser of two evils argument where you say you have to do it for her, you have to vote for her because voting for the other side would be worse off. Not that is necessarily right or wrong, but you just need to have your reasons behind it. But this stuff is it's a very slick Jedi mind trick. And I'm trying to tell you guys, like, the same people who you fear will question your blackness because you're not voting for her are the same people who are going to champion people like Megan Thee Stallion performing at rallies. How is that a decent reflection of your community?
Exactly.
Especially on a broad political stage. I don't understand it. I don't understand it, but I just think people shouldn't listen to people like Plies. In my opinion, don't listen to people like him. Just don't. Even people who come from his walk of life, even street people, I don't care. Don't listen to him. Y'all got phones too. Wikipedia is free. Just look up stuff. It's there right there for you. You can learn it, you know. And the little voice that's telling you there's something that's not all the way right with going through with this, even though my cultural edification is forcing me to do it, listen to the little voice and go the other way. Just go a different route. Be independent.
100, bro. Get out of here, Plies.
Yeah, I don't like that, man. This stuff has got to stop. It's really this is aggravating. Tugging at my heartstrings, talking about my daughters and my nieces.
Yeah, that's sick, man.
It's crazy.
Jeez.
Oh, okay. Now we got Tyrese. Tyrese, who we talked about last week, I believe. Didn't we talk about Tyrese last week?
It was something that popped up, but we went another direction. But
that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. So Tyrese has been talking a lot lately, and in this latest soundbite, he talked about his upbringing. Tyrese has had a rough go at it the last several years, losing members of his family, his mother, his sisters. Obviously, respectfully, condolences for all of that good stuff. But he's been doing the press junket recently. And one of the things that he talked about was some of the ways that his family tried to utilize certain resources in order to make ends meet, make money, in order to be able to continue to survive. So in this particular instance, Tyrese talked about how his mother had him fake a disability in order to be able to bring money into the household. And this has some people talking. So this says Tyrese reveals faking disability as a child. Tyrese Gibson recently delved into his personal history during an interview with Gillian Wallow, revealing the lengths his mother, Priscilla Murray Gibson, went to in order to support their family. He recounted a poignant story from his childhood where his mother allegedly had him feign a learning disability. This was reportedly to secure just under $800 from Social Security, which would help with the family's financial needs. Despite the gravity of the situation, Tyrese humorously labeled this moment as his first acting gig and acknowledged that Priscilla was his first director. The disclosure has stirred up discussions about the sacrifices his mother made, including the decision to have him fake a disability for financial aid and the impact of his grief on his life. While some are debating the choice of language used, Tyrese's reflection underscores the emotional weight of losing a loved one and its ongoing influence on him. So here is this particular bit here. So I may have to open up a different tab. Let's see.
My mama.
Okay, I won't have to open up a different tab.
Nice.
So here's Tyrese talking about how his mom had him fake a disability for money.
Made us go to a Social Security building and play retarded.
You get that check.
$780. Straight up. Government cheese, nigga.
Nigga, you been acting.
That was my first acting gig.
Your mom was your first director. She gave you your first movie gig. Your mom, first director. The nigga walked right in there.
That was my first motherfucking acting gig.
That was your first acting gig.
Hey man, they laughing off.
Your mom gave you.
Why you laughing so goddamn hard, man?
Hey, your mom gave you first.
His face braid over. He laughing
Rest
off.
in peace to the legend. But your mom gave you
My
first
mama
acting
put me
gig.
on, nigga.
Yup.
Fuck you, mean?
Hey, I'm gonna tell y'all what it was, though. The crazy shit.
All right, so respectfully, because Tyrese's mother did pass. So respectfully, what do you think about this? This is an interesting subject. Obviously there's multiple angles to tackle it from, but one can say she did what she had to do in order to support the family. One can also say this isn't really the best look in the world, having your child fake a disability. So, what do you make of that?
It's a tough one, dude. And right on with that. Respecting his old girl. Rest in peace, right? But this is like you said, this is a little tough, because I don't necessarily care for it. I get it, but I don't care for it overall. He kept this close to the vest. He said it was the first time he told this story. Um, I believe it. He said she made his brother do it too for another 780 a month. Um, and his mindset at the time, he said he was 8 or something like that. And his mindset at the time was just getting a check for mama, helping out with the house. Yeah, we need this cash. What you mean? I can get more fruit roll ups? Hell yeah, let's do it. So I get that aspect of it. Not here to judge any of that. But to me, the overall thing about this that I do want to highlight is that it's not funny. Like none of it's funny to me. Uh, and the reasons why I don't find it funny is because that mental health in our community is it's a very interesting dynamic. I've known people who worked in the school system, and Black children being diagnosed with mental disorders and stuff, um, being basically put up to it by their parents is a thing. That's a thing that happens. So from people that's in the school system, and they can vouch for it, that Black mamas will come in here and say, test him again. No, see, he don't know it. Test him again. And and just trying to get whatever disability check on top of whatever other federal aid that can come about. So to me, this is in that same ilk. It's in that same department where parents exploiting their kids for federal checks. Uh, to me, man, it's not cool. But I'm pretty sure Tyrese, he can laugh about it now. I'm pretty sure he laughed about it then, and I'm pretty sure, man, when they had those checks coming in, everybody was all smiles. But I think that the overall discussion point of this should have been a little bit more serious. But what do you expect from Wallow and Gilly? And my concern about this clip is the dangerous rhetoric aspect of it, where there's going to be copycats.
Yes.
So, and not all parents are going to do what they did, what Tyrese mama did, and just say act the part. Some parents may even neglect their children to make that happen. And that's the stuff that I would hear from people who were in the school system, where they would pretty much hold their kid back so they can keep failing and so they can keep getting stuff. And, low key, some situations putting them on meds, just to keep the act going. So I think this is kind of dangerous. This is his life story. He came out on the other side, and that's good for him. And I'm sure there's other kids that went through this and they came out on the other side. That's great. But I would also argue that some people got lost in there, with people trying to game the system for financial aid in this department. So I don't think it's cool all the way. It is what it is with his life, but copycats beware. I don't think it's cool. But what are your thoughts, man, on Tyrese, faking disability when he was a youngster to get government assistance? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so right out of the way, I'll just say that if this was a survival tactic, even though I don't agree with it, I don't really, it's not my place to judge it negatively, because people got to do what they got to do to survive. So right away, I'm just going to say that, and I'm going to put that in a box and sit it over here. Now, the problem that I have with this is, and you touched on it because that's where I was going to go. You kind of danced around what I was going to say.
Mm.
But my problem with this, you said copycats.
Mm.
So right now, what we have going on, I would say, and this was with people, period. This is a class issue
Mm-hmm.
more than anything else. This is an economics thing. And right now, what we have going on, in my opinion, is that there's an entire trough of that 65 to 70% of this population, particularly in this country, who one would classify as working class, meaning you work for a living. You get up every day, you go to work, you collect a paycheck. People who work 9 to 5s, people who work 40 hours a week, people who, you know, earn salaries so that they can get benefits, health insurance, so on and so forth. People who work office jobs, administrative assistant work, you know, maybe you work in marketing, maybe you work in journalism, maybe you know, people who work for a living. That constitutes about 70% of the population. Right now, I would say that there's a decent amount of that 70% of the population that, due to the current economic climate, resort to scamming as a typical means of bringing in residual or supplementary income.
Mm-hmm.
What that has done, in my opinion, is it has created an environment in which scamming is viewed as a logical progression for bringing in money. It isn't a last resort, as in the case of Tyrese's mother. So Tyrese's mother did it for survival. I believe people nowadays are scamming just to do it because people just genuinely are lazy, don't really want to work any harder, or don't really want to actually acquire any additional skill set or figure out a way to start a business or do anything of that nature. The degree of difficulty on that for a lot of people is a bit too high. So, how can I earn supplementary income to remain financially viable in this climate? I'm going to start scamming. I'm going to figure out the next system to game in order to make money. And I'll give you an example of one that I immediately think of, right? And it's a very simple one, but it's one that reminds me of this dynamic often. And I know people personally who do this. Obviously, I'm not going to mention names. But you look at people who game the handicap parking decal system.
Mm-hmm.
I know several people, just letting you know, who figure out a way to finagle themselves into getting a handicap decal, not because they have a disability or because they're actually handicapped, but because they feel like, due to their financial situation, they're entitled to something that they can game a system for because they deserve that. There's a sense of entitlement going on with people who embrace scamming nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, handicap decals is one of those scamming acts where I don't care if I'm taking this spot away from somebody who might actually be disabled and need it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm selfish and I don't care because this is what's owed to me, because the world owes me this.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that you have a lot of people who are scamming whatever that, I don't know what service or what thing that is where you report on a mental disability in order to receive a check from the government. I'm assuming that's a government thing. But whatever that thing is, I would imagine that is going on ad nauseum for a lot of people who are gaming the system, not necessarily because they need it to survive, but because they feel like the world owes them that. And I think that that's a dangerous line to walk.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not doing it for survival, you're doing it because you feel the world owes you something. That the world doesn't owe you anything. What you owe to yourself is the responsibility of doing what you need to do to get out of the hamster wheel, to get out of the rat race, instead of gaming systems because you feel like you're entitled to something that you're otherwise not entitled to.
Mm-hmm.
And when you mention copycat, what it reminds me of is not necessarily Tyrese's mom specifically, but other people who are out here scamming on everything.
Yeah.
Scamming social security numbers
Yep.
at medical offices.
Yep.
Scamming handicap decals, scamming Netflix accounts, Scamming whatever you can scamming whatever you can scam so that you can get out of paying for something, that you can get money that you don't deserve, so that you can get something that you can bring in for yourself because you feel like the world owes you this because of where you are in your life. You have a lot of people walking around out here in life who are abjectly miserable with the trajectory of their life. And the way that they reconcile that trajectory is by stealing and scamming because they feel the world owes it to them. So again, I don't want to disparage people who are doing stuff like this because they needed to survive. But I do believe that there is a plentiful amount of people who don't need to do these things merely to survive. They're doing it because they're selfish and they feel as though the world owes them something. So they're going to scam away, steal away. Oh, I'll pay you. I'm going to walk into, a facility where they keep social security numbers on file. And maybe I can pay somebody to gain access to that information and then file tax returns so that I can get some money coming in. And that's just one example of some of the things that people do out here. Scam artists, cyber attacks, people stealing data. Why do you do that? For what reason? Like, you're scamming for what exactly? You don't need that to survive. You're doing it because you can game a particular system in order to steal something that otherwise doesn't belong to you. See, in a weird way, and this will be the last thing that I'll say. There's a certain level of disdain that I have for thieves. Like, thieves to me are the lowest form of scum. Like, even though I don't agree with it, I can entertain the logic of a drug dealer. I'll entertain the logic of somebody like that. I'll entertain the logic of somebody who did steroids. I'll entertain the logic of somebody who cheated on their SATs.
Oh, totally.
I'll entertain that logic. I will. I'll entertain that logic. I'll entertain the logic of somebody who fibbed on a college entrance exam or an application.
Yeah.
But what I'm not going to entertain is the logic of someone who steals from another person. You didn't earn that, but you feel the world owes you something, so you're going to steal it anyway. Like, I discuss that. I find that disgusting. And people who do that to me are absolutely disgusting. And there's a special place in hell for people who scam. There is. There's a special place in Lucifer's domain for people who want to scam and steal from other individuals.
Yeah.
Steal from a bank, steal from Wall Street, steal from an institution. Don't steal my money. Don't steal from me. Don't take away resources that I am in need of because I'm actually a part of the group that's affected by what you're stealing from. So, that's where my mind goes with something like this. I feel like scamming has become, in and of itself, a profession for a lot of people.
Yes, it has.
The idea isn't what can I do to get out of the hamster wheel. The idea is what can I steal or scam so that I can get out of the hamster wheel. Or maybe I stay in the hamster wheel, but I steal and scam in order to supplement myself so that I can be out here getting to a bag, even though I'm not doing it legitimately. And maybe this is me engaging in righteous indignation. Maybe I'm being righteous. You can call me whatever you want. I really don't have I don't have an issue with people exploiting loopholes when it doesn't directly affect the next person. But when it directly affects somebody tangibly, that's when I take issue with that. So that's where my mind went to with this. And for people who are doing it for the sake of survival, even though I don't agree with it, I can reconcile the idea behind it. But what I can't get behind is people who are filing to get this check and that check, not because they need it to survive, but because they're going to exploit that loophole because they just feel like they don't give a damn and the world owes them something.
Yeah, well said, man. And yeah, man, thieving, scamming, man, it's just I don't know where that came from, but that's like the new wave. So, and it's not all the way legit too. Geez, man, like whether they know it or not, even all this stuff digital, that's like a paper trail. So, I mean, I know they got their VPNs and they whatever, and all kinds of ways to rigmarole stuff, but Scamming is just not the play. I don't know when that transition happened, but that seems to be the play of criminals at this point. They've taken it off the streets so much and went to just straight up scamming institutions and individuals.
Well, I think being a criminal nowadays is looked at the same as being a sex worker, which is what's the big deal, So, yeah, I'm gonna pop box on OnlyFans and I'm gonna pop box, you know, everywhere else, and who cares? Because being a sex worker is no big deal. I think criminal activity is largely viewed the same way. It's the world is rigged, and the world owes us this. So if I need to be a criminal to get over on that, who cares? It's not a big deal. So the stealing and all of that kind of stuff, I feel like that's where the mentality comes from.
Yeah, man. And also, at least in our music, I think it was like 2014, 15, up in that range where I'm starting to hear, it was like Migos and stuff, and talking about kicking in doors and stealing from, well-to-do people. And they're in Atlanta, so they're stealing from Black people. And they're just kicking in doors and they're talking about it. Plies himself talking about running off from the plug twice. And my thing, and I wasn't, I'm no dealer. I don't deal in that realm or that world, but I was like, how low of integrity is that? Running off from the plug once is already egregious to me. But him sitting here flexing, talking about running from the plug twice. I'm like, what kind of, it's similar to the way that it went from, oh, we're the drug dealers to now we're the drug users. So the same type of transition went from happening to like, hey, we're just drug dealing criminals to no, we're scamming each other, we're scamming everything, we're stealing from regular people. And it's like, hey man, what part of the game is this? So scamming became a thing. And now there's rappers who rap about scamming. So they'll rap about selling their bricks and also how they scam. And so it's become trendy. So that's why, the word copycat I use, but I'm sure there's people out there that's on hard times, that's going to put Junior up to it now. And my concern was the parents that took it too far. And this is the last thing I'll say. And this is from people that I know from the school system that saw their kid, these kids in the school who aren't on the spectrum, but the parents are making it happen. They're pumping them with medication to sell it.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that's my problem with this stuff. So Tyrese talked about it in a way where I was like, oh yeah, I was on the spectrum and what I'm saying, I had to finesse the game and we just cut the check. That's just one degree of it. These people keep coming back like social workers to keep testing the child. And the parents have to keep the act going. So I know for a fact that there has been a child who had a trajectory that was going normal and parents who wanted the check put their kids in a compromising situation and they didn't make it, and now who knows what their life is like now because they were hooked on psychotropics. And there's kids right now, adults right now, white, Black, and everybody in between on TikTok and stuff like that were on psychotropics as a child, but they didn't need to be. So yeah, this is a fine line, man. And I get what you're saying as far as like, hey man, people do what they do when they in their situations. If you just did that and you got out of there fine, bro, I'm not here to judge those, but I will judge the people that are putting their children in highly compromised situations by enforcing this year after year. And yeah, man. So it's tough stuff, man. Sensitive topic, man. But so long, Tyrese seemed to have made it, right? He seems to be a guy now.
Yeah, he's doing all right, man. But I got a thing with it. I got a thing for thieves, man. It just it grates me. It really does. Like, take from an institution, but you're just gonna take from the next individual who needs it just as much, if not more, than you do, because of your selfishness and your entitlement. and that really, really bothers me. It really does. And I see it a lot. I see people just gaming and scamming whatever they can just to get a leg up and to get a head start on stuff that, it's like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
park the damn car and walk. Stop being lazy. You don't even need that decal. Like it's annoying, man. And I know like handicap decals is a drop in the bucket. It's not the most serious thing in the world, but still, it's like, why do you have to be a scam artist? Like, you're being a scam artist. You got two perfectly good legs. You're not handicapped, but you're just gonna game this system just because you feel like it. I just personally, I don't know. I just can't stand stuff like that.
Nah, and this is the last thing I say, man. Because if I was, what I'm saying, handicapped, and what I'm saying, I saw an able-bodied person just hop in a whip, they ain't got nobody else with them, I'd be like, that's foul, bro. Because
Yeah.
I had to find a way from another spot. You know what I'm saying? So, and I felt some type of way about using the handicap bathroom at work. You know what I'm saying? But I knew there was no handicapped people on shift. So it was different. Like, if there's no handicapped people on shift, I'm going hog wild in there. All right. But when I was working at Walmart and people can go in there, there are handicapped.
Yeah.
I didn't
Right.
go in those.
Right.
But
Yeah.
so much, I would say. But hey,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
it's a wild thing. But I hear what you're saying about that parking. It's wild
Yeah.
stuff.
I just think in general, people need to do a better job of taking inventory on how some of their decisions and actions may affect the next individual. And we don't do enough of that. We're just like selfish and we don't give a shit. We just don't care. We're just like, I don't care. I'm doing this because it's what I want for myself. And the entitlement is a real, it grates my nerves, but it is what it is. Shouts out to everybody out there who's trying to make it and survive, because this inflation is real. I get it, but you don't got to scam. Like, there's other ways. You don't got to scam.
Muscle up, man. Muscle up.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, and now we have now we have Steve Harvey, who decided that he'd respond to Cat Williams' assertion that
8 months
Steve
later.
Harvey was out here stealing jokes. And Steve Harvey made an appearance at what was this event that Steve Harvey made an appearance at? He was at what's the name of this thing? I'll find
Toupee
it.
convention. The Toupee convention. What was it? Harry's convention. What it was?
It was some kind of convention. But we'll go ahead and talk about it, and I'll probably read it along the way. But Steve Harvey is coming out and responding to Cat Williams' assertions going way back to when Cat was on Club Shay Shay, talking about how Steve Harvey is essentially talentless and is a joke stealer. And I guess after all of these months, Harvey is responding to these allegations. So this says Steve Harvey finally fires back at Cat Williams with a strong message. Steve Harvey has finally fired back at Cat Williams for the bombshell criticism he leveled at him during an appearance on Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharp earlier this year. He addressed his fellow comedian while speaking at Invest Fest. That's what it was. Invest Fest in Atlanta over the weekend. In doing so, he offered to turn their rivalry physical. You'll never have a hater that's doing better than you. Always know that, Harvey remarked to Stephen A. Smith while discussing Williams. He then joked about his fighting skills before adding, "I'll knock your short ass out." When the Neighborhood Talk posted the clip on Instagram, fans mainly took Williams' side in the comments section. He definitely feels away. The cursing and name calling shows it. Cat never called that man out his name, but he did speak truth. Truth always gets a certain type of reaction, and this is one of them, one user wrote. Another added, "Steve, you are not winning this one, man. The people love Cat, and Cat did not tell a lie." As for Williams' fiery criticism, he accused Harvey of stealing his jokes from other comedians. So this just goes into quotes that Cat made during Club Shay Shay. Anybody who's been living under a rock who has not seen that, I highly advise you to go to Club Shay Shay on YouTube and check out that full interview with Cat Williams. But here is some sound of Steve Harvey going at Cat Williams in response to Cat's assertions.
Ass hater who is, and you'll never have a hater that's doing better than you. Always know that. Don't get off the wall to dress some any ass boy who ain't got shit going for himself. Now you done stopped your climb up on the wall so you can come down here and talk to his little punk ass. Don't do that, man. I stay away from it. Now, do I want to? Yes. Because I'm a human being and I'm hood. I used to be a fighter and I still got hands. They slow, but if you get up on me real close, I can still knock your monkey ass out there. I just don't have the quickness I have. But I still know how to turn my hip and shift that weight, and I'll knock your short ass out. I'll shoot your perm straight out your head. I don't even know what I see.
Oh, okay. And here's a little bit of what Kat said originally.
That went to go watch Mark Curry do his whole sitcom and then stole everything Mark Curry had. Now Steve got a sitcom where he the principal and he wear a suit and then he gets this high top fade, making all black men think he got the best lineup in the business. And it's a man unit. Then you ask it, why you not a movie star? I didn't want to be a movie star. This the same Negro that hated on Bernie with this same thing. I didn't want to be a movie star. No, you couldn't be a movie star. There are 30,000 new scripts in Hollywood every year. Not one of them asks for a country bumpkin black dude that can't talk good, baby, and look like Mr. Potato Head. There ain't none. You would have to have a range. I played a lot of characters, 60 movie roles. I'm not playing Cat Williams in there.
I don't know, Cat. We might not let you drink anymore. I mean, we ain't even got.
I'm not fueled by alcohol.
Oh man,
Shanna's response is still funny to me to this day. Whenever Kat was going in, but yeah, I thought that Steve was being a clown. But I'll let you go ahead and what do you make of Steve Harvey? I don't even really know what he responded to. He basically just threatened the guy.
Yeah,
but yeah, what do you make of what Steve said with that?
Yeah, I think that him explaining himself in expletives meant that he didn't have anything to say. Much like how that commenter said, him cussing all like that, it just proves that, he doesn't have much to stand on. So, hey, I think Steve Harvey is a funny person. I do. I think he's a funny guy. He makes me chuckle. Much like Kevin Hart, he makes me chuckle, as an individual. I think they're funny human beings. But are they good comedians? I don't think either one of them are good comedians. But I'll stick with Steve Harvey here. And I think that Steve Harvey, due to the lack of him having the ability to carry something himself, he does borrow. And he does the thing that goes on in the comedy game. Because honestly, when Cat Williams brought this up, it sparked the whole conversation of who's biting who's stealing whose jokes and stuff like that. And I didn't know it was so replete throughout the whole comedic industry that these guys are just doing this. I was very shocked about that. So for Steve Harvey to be accused of stealing jokes, stealing personas or whatever, I'm not surprised. I'm really not. So if Steve really had a leg to stand on this, he would have, in my opinion, taken the high road. But for him to reduce this down to fisticuffs just shows how irritated this actually made him. And it really struck a nerve with him. Cat Williams, and he might, we're just covering this initially. There's going to be stuff that comes out after this. Cat will unmute, trust. And Cat had a comedy off, faced off against Steve Harvey. And let Cat tell it. He won that. I think that happened in Detroit or something like that. And he ran away with the show. And, let Cat tell it. And the way that Steve Harvey responded here, I would say that Cat did run away with it. And I think he doesn't like Cat because Cat does have the people behind him. I'm one of them. Cat can appear unhinged at points, He can come off a bit erratic, but one thing that he does though, as far as an industryite, he does keep it. He keeps a lot of stuff above board, and he is real as it gets for somebody who is exposed as he is, as far as like the industry and all that other stuff. So he has that persona on his side. He has people on his side, and whatever he says, people are going to believe it. So, yeah, Steve, he doesn't like that. But hey, man, I believe Cat, and I stand with Cat, and I think that Steve Harvey sounded butthurt there. So he made me chuckle when I heard it. But when I heard it, I was like, damn, bro, you ain't got nothing better than that. Like, you can't actually stand up for yourself. But the Steve Harvey, Bernie Mac stuff is well documented. Him taking people's jokes is well documented. So he ain't got much to say besides, let's fight about it. But what are your thoughts on Steve Harvey? Low-key threatening Cat Williams. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought Steve basically exposed Cat for being correct.
Yeah.
This, I don't have much to add to what you had to say. This reminded me of, it doesn't matter what your logic is, I got rings, so I'm better.
Yeah.
We talked about Magic Johnson's retort to Anthony Edwards in our first block. And even though I understood Magic Johnson's perturbedness with Anthony Edwards' comments, I didn't like the logic that Magic used to dismiss him, basically saying, well, I've got rings and you don't, therefore your opinion doesn't matter. To me, that's lazy. To me, that's lazy logic. You're not really addressing the veracity of what Anthony Edwards is saying. You're dismissing him and saying you ain't won nothing. And this, to me, this reminded me of that. Like, Steve Harvey didn't specifically address the veracity of any of Cat's comments. He just cussed and said he'll fight him, which to me is akin to saying your opinion doesn't count because you ain't won rings.
Yeah.
So, like, that tells me that there's some truth to what Cat's saying, because if you knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that you ain't been stealing no jokes and that all the stuff Cat Williams was saying was not correct, you wouldn't have an issue with being on that stage and publicly picking apart all the things that Cat was saying.
Agreed.
Like, be articulate and pick apart Cat Williams' assertions. You're a smart enough guy. If there's no truth to what Cat was saying, go ahead and pick his arguments apart. Use your facts against his lies, according to you. But you bypassed doing any of that and went straight to just kind of being rambunctious. and so for me, I feel like there's some truth to what Cat was saying. And at the end of the day, I'm going to value the truth teller over the showman 7 days out of the week. So I don't care how much of a showman you are, or how funny you were to that crowd, or how great the delivery of some of your speech was in that moment. I'm going to value the person who's telling the truth.
Agreed.
It is what it is. And right now it's looking like Cat's telling the truth. And this is what I don't understand about these people in the celebrity space. Me, like, I put myself in their shoes. Me being me, I don't care what my PR person says to me. I don't care what my publicist says to me. If I know something's not true, I'm going to jump at the opportunity to dispel what is being said against me if I know it to not be true. The only way that I'm going to walk around it is if I know that there's truth to it, but I want to save face somehow. So for someone's in Steve Harvey's position to basically just kind of become a flamethrower, it says that you're walking on eggshells and you're dancing around the central issue, which is the veracity of the specific things that Cat was saying. And for you to disregard that entirely and talk about how you're going to beat the guy up says to me that he might have been telling the truth. So that's kind of how I look at this. People in general need to understand that people aren't as dumb as you think. And if you're going to dance around the central issue, people are going to notice that. Okay, well, all of that doohickery and inception is all cool, but can you please address what Kat was talking about?
Please.
Yes. And if you cannot do that, I at that point have no choice but to assume that what Kat was saying was true.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people think that they can pull that over on people, and people aren't that dumb. And that's why people's careers take a hit, because essentially you start looking like a liar or a phony at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say good luck to Harvey in this instance. But if you're not going to address what the man says specifically, you're just going to look like you're dancing around the issue. And that's going to cause you to look like a phony. And good luck to your career at that point.
Yeah, man. Well said, bro. So to Steve Harvey and everybody that was at that man unit convention laughing with him, y'all can kick rocks, man. This is 2 years in a row, man. Invest Fest. We covered the Diddler last year.
Yeah.
I guess trying to get out ahead of the allegations, talking about all this empowerment stuff. So they're booking the Diddler. They're booking Mr. Potato Head. Lord have mercy. Who are they going to have next year? Plies.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So, Mr. Steve Harvey, you can take your Mr. Potato Head mustache and get the hell out of here, man.
Yeah. Yeah. People see right through that, man. If you're not going to address what people said, then no one's going to believe whatever it is that you have to say. So,
Team Cat.
Yeah. Cat is still looking like the prophesier at this point. And if anyone wants to dispel that, address what the man is talking about. It's simple. It's simple. Shouts out to Cat, bro.
Yeah, shout out to Cat.
And last but not least, we are going to discuss Miss Lizzo. Lizzo is indeed a friend of the channel. We've talked about Lizzo in several videos, and this will be no different. Lizzo is making moves to unveil all the hard work she's been putting into herself, her personal wellness, and her fitness. She's been hard on the exercise game, on the dieting game, on the fitness game, trying to lose the unhealthy pounds. And she feels so good about herself that she is now starting to post thirst traps to document this process.
Oh,
yeah. You already know. This should come as no shock to anybody who knows how Lizzo likes to move. She is going to be one of the main people who are out there flaunting her body as she continues to lose this weight. So this says Lizzo continues to flaunt body transformation with red bathing suit thirst trap.
Okay, hang on. We got a spinning wheel right now.
Okay, yeah, because my browser was acting up a little bit, so I'll give it a chance to chill.
Recalibrate.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You still see the spinning wheel?
Yeah, Lizzo's slowing down the stream, bro.
Okay. All right. We'll see. It's looking good for me.
Okay, hey man, go for it, bro. We'll there it is. We on.
Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah. So this says Lizzo continues to flaunt body transformation with red bathing suit thirst trap. Lizzo is an artist who has never shied away from being herself. Overall, she has a ton of haters out there. However, she has plenty of adoring fans as well. For the most part, she has been a leader in the body positivity movement. She has never denied her size, but she has also never apologized for it. She has always sought to show people that you can be healthy regardless of your size. That said, Lizzo has since started going on a fitness journey, which has resulted in weight loss. In fact, she recently flaunted this weight loss while declaring that she would get going on a hiatus of sorts. Despite the hiatus, fans are most definitely excited for Lizzo right now. After all, it is an exciting time for her. She is going through a transformation, and she seems to be doing well mentally. On social media, she continues to showcase her aforementioned weight loss, this time with a red bathing suit thirst trap, which you can view down below. So here's Lizzo documenting things with her red bathing suit there. So there you go, Lizzo with the posts. So she's all here for it. You can't tell her nothing. Fans over at the Neighborhood Talk were impressed with the transformation. What I respect most is she has the money to go to the doc, but she's working it off. I hope her plastic friends in Hollywood are supporting her decision, one person wrote. I can get down with that. She worked hard for her body. She deserves to show it off, said another. Needless to say, fans are being very supportive, which is always nice to see, given the fact that the internet is usually a sea of hate. So, Lizzo here, um, continuing to, without shame, um, let people in on what she has going on the personal front. So she's doing the weight loss thing, she's doing the fitness thing, and she's got the results. She's got the gains to show for it. So, what do you make of Lizzo's recent journey and her decision to kind of let the world in on it on Instagram and such?
I mean, you're not going to stop her now. She's going to continue this. I mean, she was thirst trapping before this.
Oh yeah.
She was showing ass when she wasn't happy with how she looked with herself. So just imagine when she actually loses pounds and is at a weight where I think it'll be a consensus that she has a nice shape or something. If it gets there, it wouldn't be any stopping her. My problem isn't so much with her weight or her losing it or whatever. My problem with her was always her indecent exposure. Whether it was at that Lakers game where she was literally mooning the entire crowd, or or anything else where she's just being unnecessarily scantily clad. Where there's some type of premiere or whatever, she's walking red carpet and just doing the most. So when we covered Sierra, when she was on the red carpet with her husband, okay, I had a problem with that, of too much exposure, in public venues and stuff like that. So for her to be even more confident in her appearance, the more weight that she loses, the more she's going to be showing stuff like this. So my problem, again, is not with her weight. Okay. My problem is the mindset in which she's promoting to our women. And I'll say this and I'll let you go. One thing that it's a wild world being at that weight, I would assume, because once you finally lose it, drop it. Whether you did it the hard way when you was actually working out, you had some surgery, some whatever, Ozempics, whatever you did. Whenever that person goes into a mirror and they see the version of themselves that they wanted or whatever, I'm concerned about the self-esteem level that person now has based upon what they used to have. And there was a young lady that I had met, because I like thickness, man. I like some jiggle and some wiggle. So this was a young lady who was, to me, super thick, at the bottom half. I was like, hey man, what's going on there? So I went to go talk to her, got a number, all that. Started talking to her, and she told me that she used to weigh, hundreds of pounds more. More. And I was like, ain't no way. She showed me the picture, and I was like, holy smokes. No wonder there's so much wiggle going on. But then, so as I'm getting to talk to her and getting to know her, I'm realizing that there's a complex going on that I can't get with long term. So she wasn't hot before in her world. Now she's hot in her world, and she wants to take this new body out for a spin. And there's no real, you can't really talk to that person, negotiate with that person, because of that attention deficit they used to have. And now that they're getting all the attention, they don't really know how to act with it. So Lizzo, who was already showing ass and doing all this other stuff, who's finally getting to levels that she respects and that the internet's going to back her up on it, she's going to be even more hard to handle due to her lack of self-esteem that she gathered from having that lifestyle before. So yeah, look out, guys. If you guys, had enough of Lizzo before, she's going to be even more unbearable. And so yeah, this is just phase one of all these thirst traps. So look out for more to come. But what are your thoughts, sir, on Miss Lizzo dropping some pounds, I guess the natural way? And then, well, showing ass on the internet. What are your thoughts?
Not surprising. She was already sort of a beacon for being happy in your own skin beforehand. So I feel like it's only going to be magnified as she becomes even happier with who she is. Because make no mistake about it, to all of these body positivity advocates out here in the world, Lizzo with the weight loss is going to be even happier with how she looks. I hear what you're saying. I'm gonna go a different route. As we've talked about Lizzo in the past, I am of the belief that Lizzo unwittingly became a spokesperson for body positivity because I think Lizzo was used as a tool by bad faith actors who infiltrated body positivity and co-opted it
Yes.
in order to conflate it with being happy, frankly, with being unhealthy and being overweight. Like there's a difference between loving who you are and maximizing on what that is, and that being body positivity, and being happy and embracing being overweight and unhealthy. Those two things are different. But I think the overweight and unhealthy crowd infiltrated body positivity and conflated the issue. They co-opted it with their own personal agenda, which is we want to create a world where an individual can be overweight and unhealthy, but be perceived as just as desirable as somebody who is not. That is unrealistic. It doesn't make sense, and it is wrong. And I think Lizzo became the poster child for that unwittingly because she was probably on the side of the reasonable angle of body positivity, one which stipulates love who you are, but also work on yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself. Do you want to know how I know that that's the side of this body positivity conversation that Lizzo is on? Because she went and lost weight. She went and lost weight. So she wasn't on the toxic side of it. She was on the side of it that is actually about embracing who you are. Lizzo's never going to look like Lori Harvey. Like Lizzo's never going to look like Lori Harvey. Lizzo's never going to look like Brittany Renner. Lizzo's never going to look like, you brought up Sierra. Lizzo's never going to look like Sierra. And Lizzo knows this. But what Lizzo can do is lose the weight, work on herself, maximize what she has to the best of her ability so that she can be the best version of herself, despite the knowledge that she will never look like Lori Harvey, and being happy with that. That's the true spirit of body positivity. Not I'm going to be overweight and a fat ass and be irresponsible, but let me be happy about that and love who I am in my skin. Okay, those are two different things. So in that way, I'm actually going to give Lizzo credit for the work she's putting in. Now, how she's going to parade herself publicly, I may have different thoughts on that. She's going to be out here thirst trapping. She thinks she Chloe Bailey. She can just thirst trap and put out bikini pics all day, every day. Look, man, that's the way of the world. I'm not going to stop it. I don't have to agree with it, but that to me is separate from her being a part of the true essence of what body positivity constitutes. And I'm going to give her credit for that. Here's where I will caution her. She better get ready to defend herself against the onslaught of people who are going to be coming at her, hating on her because they feel as though she turned her back on them.
She abandoned them.
She abandoned them. Yes. She abandoned all of the chunkies of the world who want to. She abandoned all of the chunkies in the world who want to stay in their chunkiness.
Yeah.
Because they lost a champion. And they don't like these people don't like losing their champions. They don't like losing their champions. All right. They went at Adele when Adele lost weight. They lost their champion. Adele went and lost the weight. Adele looks good now. She didn't want to be that way. And they turned on her. Okay, because Adele was like, I'm going to actually maximize and be the best version of myself. They turned on Rebel Wilson. Look her up. Rebel Wilson, she was an actress. I know her from, what's the name of that movie? Pitch Perfect. But she used to be a big, she used to be like the big fun, and that was her shtick. Part of her comedic appeal in her movies was being the goofy big girl.
Mm-hmm.
And she lost weight, and people turned and they got mad at her because she lost weight. The same thing is going to happen to Lizzo. So I think Lizzo better get herself prepared to respond to the slew of people who are going to feel as though she abandoned them because she decided that she was going to join the brigade of people who would dare to maximize themselves and lose the weight. And I'm not sitting here saying everybody needs to be statuesque. Not everyone's going to look the same, but I think everyone owes it to themselves to move around, not be unhealthy, so that you can live a long and productive life. And Lizzo recognizes that. I don't think she ever wanted to be the poster child for toxic body positivity, but she unwittingly became that. And now that she is going to be removed from that, she's going to have to defend her decision to remove herself from that, from the people who would have rathered she stayed there. And she's going to have to deal with that. So to that, I say, Lizzo, good luck, but trust me, it's going to come. Unless you decide to just get bigger again.
I don't know. Hey, but I think what's going to end up happening with her is she's going to lose weight, and from there she's going to she would get augmented to like cut off like additional fat, hanging on arms and stomach, whatever, and she's going to get shapely on everybody's ass. And she is, as shapely as she can get, and that's what I'm saying. It's going to be hell to pay when she reaches something. And again, I don't care, more power to her. So, but my thing is, like I mentioned, like I had a problem when Sierra did it. I had a problem when Chloe Bailey does stuff. Like, anytime we cover stuff, my problem is with the indecent exposure. And I'm telling you right now, when she does, or even now, red carpet, public event, or whatever, she is going to come outside naked. And that's my problem. You can be positive about your body and still cover yourself up. And so she's taking this shtick way too far. And, kudos to her. Let her do her thing now. But I just don't, because she's taking stuff online. Everybody posts that for whatever. I don't. But my thing is, don't bring this outside like you did to that Lakers game. And if and when it happens, that's my problem. So, cover yourself up. Just because you're showing the world your body doesn't mean that you love yourself. I don't understand when that correlation became a thing.
Bro,
so I don't get it.
You must have missed the memo, bro.
What's that?
The more naked, the better. Didn't you get the memo?
Nah, I must have. I must have went into my spam folder because I didn't catch that one, man. But that's the play, man. So, hey, man, more power to her, man. But there's people out here that have good looking bodies and they wear clothes. So just cover yourself up, man. But we're dealing with Lizzo here, and she's gonna play I'm a celebrity card. This is part of everybody's gonna have their excuses for this, but I don't like our women coming outside like that, to be honest. To keep it a buck.
Well, yeah, you already said it, bro. If she was wearing sheer dresses before, of course she's gonna do it now. Are you kidding me? That's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. But yeah, I mean, that's a conversation for another video. These weird distortions, the weird distortions that have been placed on things like empowerment,
right,
and body positivity. Like, why did a conflation between body positivity and being naked in public take place? Like, when did that happen?
Don't know.
And you better not say nothing, you Neanderthal. You better not say nothing. You better not say nothing, because I'm gonna be naked, and that's what's so great about it, is that we are now, like, yes, we should be in a world where being naked is decent. Just like we should live in a world where sex work is a job. Just like we should live in a world where being a scammer is okay. Like, it's all a part of the tapestry of social deconstruction. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's true. It's true. It's all a part of the tapestry of social deconstruction.
Yep.
Like what is public decency when it comes to dress? Why? Like just question it for the sake of questioning it. Why is being naked bad? Why? Let's talk about
No,
that.
we're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there, bro.
Yeah. I think we're already there. We're already there. You know, let's talk about that, everybody. Why is it bad to be naked in public? Why? Why is it so wrong? It's literally opening up that Pandora's box because we just want to be able to do whatever the hell we want. That's all it is. We just want to be able to do whatever. So I think this is a part of that. It is what it is, man. You know, and you can't say anything if you're the man in the equation and you don't have any level of comfort with it. You better not say nothing because now you look like the insecure tool who can't handle you're a woman who wants to be naked in public.
Yeah, what's the matter with you, man? You insecure or something? Get out of here, bro.
Yeah, man. Whatever, bro. This is 2024, new human stuff. What are you gonna do, man? Get down or lay down, I guess.
Yeah, bro.
But that's gonna kill it for tonight's stream, everybody, man. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. JV Wins, Dogon SS, consciousapproach.com, Conscious Approach on Instagram, CONAPPROACH. Check us out on Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm uploading these audio feeds. We are going to be on those platforms. Hit the subscribe button if this is your first time checking out what we like to do here. Leave a comment, hit that like button, let us know what you think. Major shouts out to all of the channel supporters and the followers. We certainly appreciate you. Major shouts out to Marcus Dudley, of course.
Yeah.
Major shouts out to Bagic Brown Media Studios for chiming in on the chat. You're a real one. Also salute you. Thanks a lot. And major shouts out to everybody else, man, as we continue to keep this thing rocking and rolling. So until the next video, please think for yourself and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Yeah. And the name is Dogon SS. And you can find me on Instagram at Dogon_SS and on YouTube and TikTok and DraftKings and everything else. Just go ahead and put Dogon_SS. Most likely I'll pop up. All right. And as I say on every pod, guys, don't be too high, don't be too low. Keep it calm, keep it chill, keep it play. And don't let anybody get you off your pivot, including Plies, Anthony Edwards, or anybody, Lizzo. All right. But yeah, guys, until the next time, more rings than Robert Ory. We'll catch y'all on the flip side.
Yeah, we gonna holler at y'all, man. Shouts out to the Dolphins plus 2,200 to win the Super Bowl. That's a good bet. I might put down on that.
I'm gonna take that.
Yeah. But we gonna sign out, man. Think for yourself. Be your own independent thinker, man. Don't let people bully you into being a group thinker. And we gonna catch you on the next video. We are out. Peace.
When we come back, we beat the Gators. Go Canes.